Good morning, everyone. Good to see everyone here. Richard's first. Morning, Richard. Yes, it's becoming crazy over there. Yes. We've got a red light in. Yes. One step closer to the edge. Yes. Yes. The world's gone crazy. Oh, you want it more crazy? We can always accommodate you with that, Richard. We can always accommodate you. We could put you into a cage with Ted. Is that crazy enough for you? We're organising certain plans. G'day, Tracy. Talk about yourself. Not all of us are that far gone. Sonia, good to see you here. Thankfully, all my jobs are done. Mine aren't. I wish they were. So I can hang out with you guys all day. Sounds fantastic. I'm going to pop in and out. Fair enough. You're doing some pork belly on barbecue. Sounds yummy. Yeah, look, you can only hope that your mum's willing to consider some of these things and all that. Yeah, it's crazy stuff out there. There's absolute crazy. I was going to make a video about some of the data out of the UK, but I said I won't risk my live streams. I'll do it on Monday because it's so crazy out there. You don't know. Yeah, I do take them through, but I've had cases where the censorship is just, you got to be so cryptic, it's ridiculous. Some people go, what do you mean? And so I have to sort of do visual things like Jabba the Hutt, things like that. I have to do certain things because people don't understand certain terminology. So yes, it's a weird and wacky world currently, unfortunately, in the way it's going. Anyway, how are you? I've been doing your suggestion boron protocol. Yes, I hope you're down to 3 milligrams and no more. MSM zinc biotin protocol, no changes yet. It can take a while for things to sort of settle down and stuff like that. Yeah, do include taurine, which is another important thing. Sometimes, for whatever reason, when it comes to certain sulfur amino acids, they can be depleted at different rates. So consider that as well. Gary, good to see you, mate. Morning all. Have been battling a post-Jabba lurgy. Probably wet season, not helping either. Yes, get those levels of your vitamin D up and get those levels of your taurine up. So we need a rapid clearance, so to speak, out of our systems in that regard. I mean, I've with that, and my second one basically was also negative. I threw the other one away, but I kept this one. The second one just to basically indicate it's again. And I've been around people, as you've noticed, that have had something, the more recent variant, which is 70 times more contagious. But steak and the sun, or vitamin D and taurine, are basically keeping it at bay, keeping my immune system really tip-top, really strong. I mean, the other person that's basically in the family and exposed continuously and close contact, even kissing, 4 negative tests. Say no more. Say no more the superior. This is what we saw in the tribal areas. We weren't seeing anything. It's We need to get those foreign proteins out now that they've got in. Obviously, when they're at the mucosal barrier, they can be eliminated before they get in. But once they get in the system, so yeah. Her daughter was walking with us yesterday and she was struggling. Poor thing. Little girl, 12 and a half, but she was struggling. So in that regard, we had to slow down a bit because she was struggling. We usually have a bit of a high tempo sometimes. Yeah. And that's the reality of not having sufficient good levels of vitamin D. And now her mum's got her on taurine and vitamin D, pumping it all up. And, hopefully in the next month or so, she'll be back to normal. That's what we need. We need clearance. We need to get that stuff out. We need to repair the damage, So those two things help a lot. Anyway, and the fibrotic tissue, also taurine helps with fibrotic tissue and lesions that can be created in the lungs. So, and that's what I use to reverse all my glassing. But it took me a couple of years, obviously, but at least it, now I think it was down to 18 or 19% last time. So it's come down quite a bit. I still haven't done the bloody test. I need to go and do it. But I'm not that in a hurry because I've got good lung function. So I don't know whether it's completely 100% clear. Like my fibrosis in my heart is 100%. That was the 2018. But I know that it's going to do it anyway. Okay, it's an extra year. Who gives a fuck? Great. Don't use that language. The AI is listening. Yes, you know what I mean. Anyway, Ian, good to see you, mate. Any idea on what can help with severe metabolic dysfunction despite eating a healthy meat-based diet? What do you mean by a healthy meat-based diet? Mostly severe hunger I deal with even after eating. Leptin resistance, taurine, helpful and all that. Usually, look, my next door neighbor, Hello Kitty, she's gone shopping at the moment. That's why she's going to be late before she gets back. We went to the farmer's market this morning, but she had the same sort of ravenous situation as well. And I just told her, like Bart's doing a bit of priming now by doing a lot of eating a lot of meats and stuff like that. It's really what you need to do. You really need to get the nutrition up. She was nutrient deficient in terms of protein and minerals and many other things. And I just got her eating more, really upping the actual and getting the nutrients in. And eventually that sort of normalized. She gets a few hunger moments now and then, but that's sort of normalized. And now she's getting proper signaling, So really, I don't know how long you've been on the diet, Ian, and all that, but there is adjustment period. And it can take quite a few months, up to a year for some people, depending on their derangements and actually, and the lower, you really have to cut out all the cheats. You really have to go low and strict if you really want the better results and faster. It's simple as that. It's not complicated. So why ancestrally, when people were on that sort of approach all the time, they never had any issues. It's just that basically we have never been ancestral. We've had a deranged lifestyle and diet and a lot of other things that have caused us problems. So it can take times to heal depending on what's the problem, So I would say increase your intake of animal products and your body over time will sort itself out, Get your vitamin D levels up as well. Because sometimes people are very deficient in fat-soluble vitamins as well, and they play a big role in some of the derangements. Your liver will produce something called matrix metalloproteinases, MMPs, and they are collagen-degrading enzymes and turn over in collagen throughout the body. Remember, your bones are mineralized collagen. Most of your muscle fibers are collagen. Your body's made of shitloads of collagen. Most of your body is primarily made up of proteins of a collagen type. So nutrition is very important, animal nutrition, to sort all that out. So you've got to up the nutrition and all that sort of stuff. But also the fat-soluble vitamins. Vitamin D is a very important regulator of MMPs, as is retinol and menoquinone 4, which is the animal form of vitamin K2. So you've got to get the nutrition up. And sometimes, it is an advised thing because a lot of people are sulfur depleted severely due to oxalates, due to a lot of things, environmental hazards, a lot of exposures. We don't live an ancestral life. We have far more exposure, so we can deplete our taurine levels. So in order to get our gut to function properly, our liver to function properly, our stomach to some, I've done a video on the stomach. If you Google my name stomach, you'll get a whole lot of information. It will sort all these things out. It's one of the most critical amino acids, taurine. People just do not realize how much importance it has to the diet and why an animal-based diet or that's high in taurine is so critical to our health. So anyway, let us know if you achieve a third arm or something. Yeah. Arachna problems, Richard. A lot of imagination. Stop watching too many of those movies. You're getting strange ideas. G'day, Raymond. Good to see you, mate. And Robert. Yes. When will Ted destroy Jabcinda? Nice one. With the tongue-twisting names. Trying to get me, Archer, Robert. Working on the tongue twisters. Actually, I came across some software that could help Bart actually bring Ted alive. So I've sent him all the information, and hopefully he can actually put something together where he can actually have literally conversations with Ted. I'm not kidding you. So we could have really the next level comedy if he can get it going. I sent him the information. I don't know how good it is, but if he can really get it going, he's going to really take the Meat Militia sort of to the next level in terms of comedy level. So yes. Anyway, I hope that it all pans out for him. No guarantees, but I tried a bit of the software myself and tried to do certain other voice, like alien voices and whatever else, and it seemed to work. So yeah, hopefully he can mimic, Bless's sort of voice. It'd be good. It'd be fantastic. Christina, good to see you. I'm burning some pork fat in my pot right now. Good quality fat. Sounds bloody good. Pasture-raised, yep. Foraging local piggies, yep. Healthier than taste delicious. Yeah, I got actually some from Larry, who's one of the guys down at the markets, and it's pretty much really nice pieces of pork today, and it's all pastured. It's all, one of the other, the guy actually is also retiring, but we've got the other guy who also brings us stuff, and his wife actually does carnivore, so which is quite interesting. So we get into a bit of a conversation, and yeah, they're not. And luckily, the farmers market is easy. You can walk through the farmers market unnappied, so you don't have to wear a nappy. It's just much more comfortable, and nice people that you can come into contact. Real, regular farmers with high quality stuff. So I know what you mean. Yeah. And we should support them because they will be critical long term for our food supply. I want mum on DMK4. Yep, already giving her some taurine. Yep, good. Get her taurine levels up. But remember, with her blood pressure stuff, if she's on that sort of meds, she needs to go back to a doctor and get them adjusted each time as she goes up each gram, just to be on the safe side. Keep that in mind. I've got to remind people because that is really critically important, especially when you're dealing with older people that are more likely on, contraindicated medications that unfortunately their doctors have put them on the stuff rather than using more ancestral approaches because they're completely ignorant, unfortunately. I want to try taking time after your last video, even though I don't need too. I just want to try and see if I notice any potential benefits. Oh, look, a lot of it does help with recovery and all that sort of stuff. So it is quite good in that regard. The nice thing is as well, it doesn't interfere with ROS signaling, which is really important because other antioxidants are not a good thing to basically take after a lot of exercise and sports. Where taurine, less of an issue. It doesn't have the same signaling. It actually works in a very different way by reducing the glycating factors by upregulating sort of the pathways, the intracellular type of approaches rather than these external approaches. So it's actually helping the body repair and fix itself rather than basically act at taking away the effects of exercise. So it's a bit way better in that regard. So it's a new issue, but yeah, athletes do actually take it and they do get better performance and recovery and stuff like that. So, but that's not a license, Lukey, to basically overtrain either. So, let's not use these things to overtrain. While, we can use citrulline as a vasodilator to sort of enhance our, half an hour before exercise to be able to do longer periods, to sustain more exercise. At the same time, we don't want to be basically, burning the candle at both ends and just doing excessive amounts either. That's not good. The body needs to also recover time. Actually, with recover time, you actually build more muscle. So it's really important just to keep that in mind. But yeah, the citrulline 30 minutes before is still a valid thing, and I'd take the taurine after, later, sort of, and even in the evening is actually good. I usually take some at lunchtime because I do most of my training in the afternoon, if I do any, which isn't a lot nowadays. But and then I take some in the evening, so 2 grams at about lunchtime, at the same time that I'm sort of breaking my fast or whatever, and then in the evenings later, and that's to increase GABA and the calming effect, and also improve melatonin. So that sort of stuff, very important. Bruce, good to see you, mate. Hello, mate. It's good to be here. Glad you are doing well. Yep, we will fight through this bullshit together. Thank you. Yes, you're welcome. Yeah, look. Negative. And I've been around people, as I've said. Yeah. So, but we're doing basically, me and my brother are doing basically 4 grams of taurine, 10,000. He's doing 20,000 IUs. I'm doing 10,000 IUs. But obviously, he's exposed far more in a household, and we're sleeping with someone with Omicron and stuff like that. But he's had 4. So yeah. And she's realized as well that it's important to get the animal nutrition up. So I suspect she'll start removing some of the carbs in her diet, those discretionary carbs. So yeah, we had a bit of a chat. So she's going to get a daughter on taurine as well, and more vitamin D. So yeah, so basically that will help, and make a difference. And then they'll be basically, they'll have had the experience and say, we actually just really upped her levels in the last couple of days, and she's feeling much better. Really rapidly recovering with the high taurine levels and the high vitamin D levels. So really rapidly recovering, got her up to 50,000 IUs and all that for a couple of days. So, but rapidly recovering and coming together. And one of her work colleagues, he's still sick, and he was double Jabba the Hutted, and basically he can't even hardly get out of bed. Remember that study that we showed? 90 days later, double Jabba the Hutted, worse outcomes than unjabbered. Say no more. So this guy, and she was unjabbered. So she's been pushing it back, and sort of, now that she's got that, she was trying to find out how long she can actually not have. Then it's sort of Novavax, so it's sort of coming at a time, so it's giving her a bit of, you could say, a bit of a gap, a bit of less pressure from work, because I've had it. I mean, it's like, what's the difference between the jabbering and basically having it, so they should ease off on her in her work environment. Yeah, but it's bloody crazy. I know, friggin' crazy. Anybody can get it and anybody can transmit it. That's the reality. And the averages, we're talking about in the 80s, the death rates. So that's the average, which basically means that there are more than people in their 90s and whatever. People that basically would have died in a flu season. It's just crazy. Yes, I'll be doing a video on Monday. Hopefully it won't get demonetized. It probably will, but anyway, shit happens. Can be worse. But I'm just going to show the research. That's all. Yeah, just have to be careful with the madness at the moment with the censorship. It's beyond a joke, So lots of views on the use of chloride dioxide as a pathogen killer and similar molecular hydrogen, also good fighter pathogens. I don't recommend them. There's not enough research. I've used colloidal silver in the past, but I don't recommend that either. I don't recommend any of these things. I've found that they can also be a problem to the gut microbiome. They can actually create more imbalances and more problems to the gut microbiome, NACST. So they can be more than can be more of a hindrance. So they can provide short-term relief, and then the nasties come back because you kill a lot of the beneficial ones as well. So it's not a long-term solution. It's a good business model for those who are selling this stuff, but it's not a long-term solution. Taurine plays a bigger role in dealing with sorting out your gut microbiome. And tomorrow I'll be doing a video on that. So I'll be at long last covering the gut nexus, and people will understand why they need an animal-based diet to sort out their gut and why it works. So look forward to my video tomorrow. It'll be, the first one will be on that, and the next one will be on the other issue that we've just talked about, the jabbering stuff and all that sort of stuff. So get the first one out and then basically wait for the fallout if the AI goes mad at me. Yeah. And one other thing that I forgot, it's a bit like, those oils, they're sort of like really, a lot of people take really high doses of certain types of things like, oregano oils and stuff like that. The problem is they also can cause some issues with the gut as well. Yes, they take out, but they're also taking out some beneficial stuff and there are some sort of like, because it's not only bacteria, there's also protozoa in your gut. There's a lot of different organisms, and a gut is made up of a lot of organisms, and really what we need is the more acid loving, and really that means good digestion, which comes from taurine, comes from animal products that improve the digestion over time. And sometimes I put people on high doses of like taurine supplementation in order to accelerate that whole process a bit faster. So, emulsify the bile, get that too. Because bile plays a big role in cleansing it. If you've seen my recent video talking about taurine sources and stuff like that, about plants and animals, and I go into the bile stuff and all that, how critically important that is. And we know even from children, from studies that we've done with newborns, really to absorb fat-soluble vitamins and all that, it has to be basically taurine-based, the actual bile salts that are created, because of they stay around in the gut for longer, and they allow for the better absorption, but also better cleansing of the intestine, which means that any overgrowth like SIBO or whatever gets sorted as well. Really important. And some of these others can cause microbiome imbalances, which is not a good thing, I found. None of our ancestors did those things. Just because they've got an active component that can knock out something, it doesn't mean that it's sort of indiscriminate. It's sort of not, it's not like it's something honing on specific stuff. And sometimes I hear some people, oh, they take these out. Yeah, but they take some of the other beneficial stuff out. Do you know what they're actually taking out exactly? Just because they did some rat studies and they put some of this at it with a specific strain of bacteria or this or that, that doesn't tell you anything what it's doing to all the others, because there's no research on that. But I've noticed people doing this for a number of times and then not actually getting the resolution that they want, because it's taking out some of the good stuff as well. So yeah, got to be very careful with these sort of interventions. They have their place as a very short-term thing in a severe sort of infectious state, and if you're in an environment where you can't access medical stuff, they could have the ability between sepsis and but yeah, we've got to be very careful with these sort of things. Anyway, you don't need to. Yeah, your body, body has got the Swiss Army knife from the essential amino acids, can create all the glycine you need. The body can do all that. You do not need to supplement specifically. Taurine is a different thing. Taurine is one of those things which is rate limiting and can reduce over age, and also gets heavily depleted. And the way we actually prepare our foods, we lose a lot. So it's a slightly more important, especially if you're trying to correct things. But if you're not, just stick to at most, take L-citrulline, which is a vasodilator. Good for the fellow downstairs and also good for the muscles if you're training. Anyway, I need to investigate it further. Yep. I got more anecdotes from folks around my dad's age that industries used to give their workers milk to protect against industrial contaminants. Yep. Look, a lot of these things were done in the past. If you remember, they used to wheel people out in the sun and give them raw milk. Unfortunately, nowadays we basically pasteurize all our milk. We eliminate the lactoferrin. We eliminate a lot of the taurine. We eliminate a lot of these sort of things in milk. It's not the same, but the practice sort of persists even after the changes. But in the old days, it would have been raw milk. Yep, welders, painters. Yep. Yeah. Oh, look, it's so important critically. Taurine is so critically important for, for basically all phases of detox of cytochrome P450. It's critically involved. So, I can understand. And also lactoferrin upregulating interferon in the body from raw milk. Again, that it's actually boosting your immune system. So they knew, anecdotally, they knew that that's why they gave it, because they wanted their workers to be healthy, because, if you've got too many sick workers, you're not going to be as profitable as a business. They understood that. Nowadays, people are just, they're so disconnected. Management is so disconnected from the workforce. They're just basically up here in their airy little ivory towers of, as directors and, big multinationals or whatever, completely disconnected from those sort of things and don't even see that thing and don't give a shit. So a very different environment. But yes, in those older, smaller businesses where the employer was directly interacting with the workforce, they could actually see the difference. Yeah. Bloody hell. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's heaps. Actually, a lot of the collagen is in the white part of the egg. And the nice thing is that a lot of the key essential ones are in the actual yolk. So in combination, the utilization is quite low from the whites. But when you combine the two, you get the synergies and you end up getting very high utilization of 49%. The eggs are the highest. A whole egg, that is. Exactly. G'day. Hi, Harry. Question about veggies. Does the fermentation reduce anti-nutrients in plants? Yes, it does. So my father still eats some vegetables. He eats a lot of meat, but he still eats some vegetables, and like pickled cucumbers. Even I have a bit of pickled cucumbers, raw pickled cucumbers. I'm 95%. I'm not sort of like 100%. Sometimes I am 100%. Depends on the day, but generally speaking, yeah. So Joga Street, I would say, yes, if you ferment the stuff, you will reduce a lot of the anti-nutrients. That's what people used to do in the past. Most of the actual plants that they used to consume in the winter months were fermented, like pickled stuff. So yeah, very much so. As I said, I do more of a carnivorous, more diet, but there are plenty of people that do, low carb, keto, and stuff like that. That's fine, if it works for them, and it's the vegetables aren't causing them too many problems. If you eat them raw, they're going to cause you a lot of problems. If you eat them basically, and salads in the past never existed. This is just a new fangled thing. Before refrigeration, there was no salads. You may have got a bit in spring, and that was about it. So it's just nonsense, pretty much all these salad things nowadays. And it's really harsh on the colon. You don't want that stuff. But fermented sort of vegetables and all that, yeah, if you ferment them, pretty much that's fine. You can do an old sort of vegetarian. My dad does a pie where he just uses a whole lot of dairy product and zucchini. He does like a zucchini pie. So he removes all the internal part of the zucchini, like he grows big zucchinis like this, and he'll take out all the internal stuff, or certain pumpkins as well. Takes out all the other stuff and then throws in a whole lot of dairy, feta cheese, which is what a standard Greek peasant pie used to have. And it's just basically you put a couple of liters of dairy, a couple of liters of cream, a big amount of. It's basically about two-thirds to 70% is dairy, and a third to 30% is the actual the vegetable stuff. And you mix it all up. You put some eggs in that as well, and you basically, I can't remember how many eggs Dad puts. I should get his recipe. And then basically he cooks that in the oven. It's oven baked, and you get a nice color on it. Yeah, really nice, and it's basically, it's a low carb, but also vegetarian meal at the same time, because it's dairy and egg based in that regard. So, and obviously, traditionally, most populations cooked or fermented all their vegetables. They soaked them, they cooked them, or they fermented them. They never ate them raw. Just modern people have gone a bit weird in the head and now eat a lot of raw plants and wonder why they get so many gut issues. I wonder why. It's all that beautiful fiber, apparently. Phoenix Compilation, good to see you, mate. Mountain Ash, good day as well. Yes, do hit that like button. Yes, just beep, beep, beep. Oh, just once. If you do it too many times, you'll deactivate it. Harry, Mike, catch of Lucin and Taurine arrived. I'm into my first 24 to 48 of dirty Harry fast. So far, so good. Good for you, mate. Good for you. Yes. I mean, look, I do it occasionally, I have to say. And I'll have my morning. Have to wait until 11:05, until 11 to do my first break of my time restricted feeding. But look, you will notice an improvement in because you're still going to get basically the autophagy. See, this is the myth that basically, because it's pulsatile. Each time the body clears out organelles within the actual inside, you actually drop out of autophagy automatically, because a whole lot of organelles, a whole lot of fats and proteins ended up in the bloodstream. and then, they start getting incorporated, and it takes a while before they get incorporated for the autophagy to hit back in. A dirty leucine type of approach may actually accelerate that by taking all that out and putting it into tissue much faster. So we got no research in that regard, but I've noticed, as I said, that I've done long fasts and I haven't noticed muscle loss. Where doing a classical long fast, I have noticed tone loss. So, and it was based on that research. Remember that I did on leucine. Is it leucine or insulin that drives muscle protein synthesis? And as I said, insulin is a signal molecule. It's not basically the driver. It's leucine that's driving it. And that was about 5 or 6 months ago. I can't remember now. It was a while ago. But yes, so pretty much, yeah, I think you'll get good results. Let me know how it all goes, because I know you're going to be doing a few experiments. So, yeah, just in case there's genetic differences, I'd like to know. The research shows that it's not an issue. As long as you're basically getting 3 grams or more, that's the critical component. If you're less than 3 grams, the cutoff is about 2.6, but I say to people 3. Let's just make sure we get enough in there, because there are different sizes of people and all that. And so some people that have tried it at 3 have been reporting good success. So I have to go on that and my own experience. They're all N of 1s, but the research also showed that basically that's the result. People were still, it was only the people who were completely fasted without any leucine, which were not building up, not getting any muscle protein synthesis, which is understandable. They're in a very catabolic state. But somebody can be in a faster state, then do the dirty fast, as I call it, to spike once a day with leucine. And always, what time of the day, Raymond? 11 o'clock, when your cortisol and glucose levels are the lowest, because we don't want over exaggeration of any of the other pathways. Like, we just want them enough for the muscle protein synthesis, and that's all. Signaling 11 o'clock, the golden moment in your fast. Midday 11. Memorize it. Hopefully, 3rd leg. Yes. Oh well, Richard likes those sort of things. He wants to see more legs, more things. It's a fetish, I think. I back to small amounts of liver occasionally. Yep, that's fine. Yep. I notice a small boost after having half of one. Yeah, just don't go crazy. Like Bjorn went crazy on cod liver oil. That you can go the other way, but you're getting a lot of vitamin D out in the sun continuously, so you'll be fine in terms of balancing for the receptor sites, so you don't over draw on one types of fat-soluble vitamin for the receptor sites. So really important. Anyway, that's how we get out of balance. I have a weird but interesting question. There's no weird or interesting question or not interesting question on this channel. Everything's accepted. You should hear some other people questions that they've asked me in the past. Yes. Why do women seem to be not enough strong anymore to sustain natural birth? Could this be because of physical degeneration process? Exactly. You've answered your question. It's exactly that reason. Even their birth canal is narrower. Again, for lack of protein, a lack of nutrients. It's like the narrowing of the face of the vegans. Same thing. You can't have the proper muscle skeletal structure expressed genetically and transcripted by your body as you turn over all your cellular material over 7 years if you're not getting the right nutrition. And unfortunately, today's women, they are more than likely to be vegans and vegetarians in much greater numbers. I mean, vegans, I think when it comes to women, it's something like 70%. It's again because women tend to have that nurturing, that human, the nurturing. They have to have that because men are out there to basically, they're going to defend the woman, and they're out there to basically, do all those sort of tasks that require that level of physicality, that strong will and strong personality and stuff like that. Unless you're a beta, soy boy, but that's a different thing altogether. Unfortunately, we're creating too many of them these days that have got that are soft cocks, and probably got demonetized for that as well. But anyway, we'll continue. Yes, and less than adequate. And I understand why women are basically looking at some of these men and shaking their heads, but they have lost the plot as well. Many of the women, and so there is, that's why relationships are a mess the way they are today. But it's all, the diet, the lifestyle, all the bullshit, all of it together. It's just really, and unfortunately that nurturing is redirected to these false type, cults. And even if you take a look at cult groups, like the old hippie groups and all these things, there were always disproportionately, basically, larger amounts of women in them because of this nurturing, these sort of, so that it's much easier to hijack those elements in women by these groups. And that's what's happening, where most men will go, oh, that's just, are much more, let's say, critical in their thinking when it comes to most of these things. And I'm not having a go at women. I know the feminist lobby is going to come after me like a ton of bricks, but the reality is that is the reality. If you don't like it, bad luck. From my own life experiences, most strong women usually have a strong man in their life. Most weak women usually have weak men in their life or no man in their life. And I see it constantly. When I see young girls, strong young girls, I know that they've got a strong father behind them. They are strong women. And when I see weak men or weak women, they usually are, again, due to having the absence of a father, or a weak father and not a strong father. So I'm more critical at men than women on this subject, because, women basically are always they're always checking out the guys, why? Why do they do that? They do it for a specific reason. They're looking for basically, are you strong and reliable to protect me, to provide for me, to defend me, to basically be by my side, and all that. And unfortunately, most men today have been sold the soy boy beta concept of that being nice. I mean, you want to be disrespected by a woman, be nice. Be groveling. Be kiss asking to a woman. It's one thing about loving a woman, and another thing, respecting yourself. You can't expect a woman to respect you if you can't respect yourself, and be a strong role model and a strong man that she will look up to. Simple as that. I think to a larger problem, a lot of these modern problems are, I think men have really lost the plot, large proportions of the men, and they would rather be playing computer games and getting easy sex through Tinder rather than building any strong relationships. I say to the women, abandon those sites. If you want to continue with the men that are out there, abandon those sites. Go and find real men and encourage, and if you've got sons, encourage them to fucking man up and become better role models in society. Because this generation is not only, I don't throw the blame on women as much as I throw it on men, far more. Men tolerate too much, in this society and bend over backwards and kiss ass and all that. Well, if you're a little bitch, expect to be treated like a little disrespectful bitch, in that regard. So anyway, I've said what I think about a lot of young men nowadays. They need to basically man fucking up, because that's where a lot of the problems are. Poor leadership in relationships, and so, one thing about women is they have a tendency of wanting things, and it's understandable. It's the nurture side. I've got a child. I need to get as many resources as I can to support those children. That's the priority and all that. That's the mind. That's the natural biological priority. You have to be the leader, and you have to basically be the person that basically works. That doesn't mean you ignore your partner and be disrespectful to her. No, it basically means that you man up. It's not being, I'm a tough guy. Oh, look at my muscles then. No, that's an idiot. That's a moron. That's a child that never grew up. We're talking about a real man that takes responsibility and stands up for his family and leads and basically supports his family. Not these weak little soy boys that run away. They just want the quick little fun, run away. They want the dopamine hit. Like they play the computer game, they get a dopamine hit. They think that life is all about dopamine hits, whether sexual pleasure or playing games or stuff like that. That's not life. That's just basically an addiction. Most young men today are addicted to pleasure and have given up on responsibility and everything else. And the society is telling you can have all this. Women were told they can have it all, so they're working like men and trying to be masculine, trying to basically do everything, and they're literally driving themselves into an early grave, and they're really unhappy. I come across women constantly, and they're very unhappy in their relationships, in their lives, and all that. They've been sold bullshit. And men basically are unsatisfied with life, completely unsatisfied with life, find themselves depressed in their middle age because they've achieved nothing and they've got no direction in their life. So, yeah, our society's really lost the plot, Sometimes too much freedom can basically cause... I'm not against freedom. I'm very much a pro-freedom person, but it comes with the responsibility, and that's the problem. And unfortunately, our schools have become so friggin' woke that, we're educating our young people in such a way. I mean, just look at the stuff that Sean Baker really put out recently. They're segregating. I mean, whether you're jabbed or unjabbed, you can still transmit the thing. So what's the difference? And as a child, you're going to have really mild, bronchial effects. Nobody's going to die. And even the older now, So what's the issue? It's just absolute madness. But this is the sort of world. And you can see these kids and you're going, I feel sorry. I really feel sorry for them. It's just soyified kibble lifestyle and wokeness and irresponsibility, and basically just you can have it all. You can be irresponsible and you can get your dopamine hits. Just be on social media. Just lock yourself or put yourself into the meta life, disconnect yourself from family and friends and responsibility, and just, that's the sort of madness, Kibble eater, you won't own anything. We'll own you completely. You'll be our slave, and we'll just feed you and tell you what to do, and you'll just do little silly little things, which basically will guarantee us a lot of fake profits, which are generated by, the new economic system that the tech and financiers have created by allying themselves to each other. So not a good future. Anyway, I went on a bit of a tangent there, but you know me, can't help myself. Nice, some new faces around. Looks like Harry's channel is growing. It seems like a few people are coming this way, which is good. Yes, but Not growing fast enough, but anyway, that's me, complaining. It's not growing fast enough. But anyway, in the old days, it would have grown much faster. In the old days, the non-censored times, yes. Now it's just people accidentally Googling stuff and finding, one of my videos or this or that subject and going, oh, and then looking at some of my other content and saying, this seems pretty good. And then I'm subscribing. But yes, but I do always say to people, please subscribe. And remember, if you're not subscribed, you can't leave any comments. So I know everybody that's leaving comments, you're all subscribed, because that's the only way of doing it. So in the chat thing window, I just wish I could do it in all of them. So I'm investigating that. I'm literally making it a subscribers only, not a subscriber. I do occasionally look at some people's comments and I find that they're not subscribers and I just ignore them. So, if you're going to tax some of my time, well, I expect you to basically be supportive as well. Nothing comes for free. Yes, it is a good development, which is a good thing. Helen, think about making liver jerky. Why not? Any suggestions as to the best animal taste wise? People usually say beef tastes better in terms of the jerky, where lamb, some people, look, I don't mind lamb, but some people sort of, they just don't like the palatability of it. I do lamb slightly differently. I actually will cut it into thin strips, really thin strips like that. And then the strips will be this long, and I'll basically put them in a bowl with milk, and I'll put rosemary, and I'll let it stay overnight. And that rosemary will basically take the flavor and then the next day I'll put on a tray and oven bake it. And I can tell you, they are addictive. The rosemary taste it's just really addictive. They are sort of dried out liver sticks. And they're literally like a treat, you can actually give it to your kids or whatever. It's a liver treat, and they probably need the nutrition now and then to have a couple of those treats. They're outdoors getting sun, so and also, so it's a bit of an advantage for them to get a bit of nutrition in a very colourful way. Harut, good to see you, mate. I know you come on and off now and then because you've got your work as well, so which is fair enough. But it is good to see you, mate. It's been a Yep, I'm just harvesting my elephant garlic. Bulb is huge. Would go nice with your pork belly, Mousy. Yes, it would go with Richard's. Actually, I've got some big garlic pieces from Dad. He grows them organic on his own. So yeah, I've got a few. I did give away some because I only use very little. I just scrape a bit. I make it into a sort of a cream paste, and I'll use that. So I sort of like it creamy type. Yep. I don't go overboard. G'day, Joe. Yes. You're welcome. Oops. Harry, what do you think about vitamin C? In my opinion, overrated. Yep. I'll just give you one example. In the Napoleonic Wars, when people were basically suffering from scurvy, because I'm eating a lot of kibble, dried foods, because in those days, armies did not have refrigeration or anything. The only way you took meat and all that, and once that was actually used, only the officers had most of the better foods, and the actual troops themselves were basically getting no meat, and they were eating kibble like the sailors, and eventually like those biscuits, dried biscuits and stuff like that, and eventually they would get scurvy from vitamin C deficiency. But what did they use? They didn't give them basically lemons. They didn't give them basically any citrus of whatsoever, or oranges or whatever. What did they give them? Because those things are seasonal. They gave them meat. They slaughtered horses and they gave them horse meat. And that basically fixed the scurvy. And that's even in people that are basically, remember, these people are eating also kibble at the same time as they're eating the horse meat. Meat does have, I mean, any animal that, including ourselves, our own bodies, when we eat, consume vitamin C, where does it go? Inside our cells. So why wouldn't the animals have vitamin C inside their cells, like we have inside our cells through GLUT4 receptors? It's just not logical. The only difference is that because they do the tests the way they do them, you actually, there's only one lab in Germany that actually did the proper test, and they actually showed very good levels of vitamin C in the meat. But a lot of the other tests, what they do is they pound it and all that. They get rid of all the water content of the cell, and with that goes the vitamin C. So you lose. It's like taurine. The more water content you lose within, you lose taurine, but also you lose some vitamin C. So the more rare, medium rare, or raw the meat is, you basically have more vitamin C content. It's like milk. The more raw it is, it hasn't been cooked, it's very high in vitamin C. So it's a very good source of vitamin C, milk. But if you basically pasteurize it, you eliminate all the vitamin C. So back in those days, they weren't pasteurizing and they weren't basically overcooking. And so as a consequence, people were getting more than enough vitamin C. The other thing is at the receptor site, when you're on a low carb diet or ketogenic or carnivore diet, and you've pretty much got no carbs, there's not even competition. Like these guys were actually getting competition from the kibble that they were eating with the horse meat, but still were able to fix up their scurvy, let alone us. We get more than enough. More than enough, I mean, I used to get more, my gums used to bleed and all that when I was on a kibble diet than I do now. Even though I was supplementing vitamin C, I was still getting, a lot of my gums bleeding and stuff like that. And I don't get that anymore. That's the difference. Also, the menoquinone 4 has helped improve the teeth as well. But this is the sort of thing. So vitamin C is supplemental. It's not required on a carnivore diet. The Inuit, the Maasai, and all these, and the San people of the Kalahari, they all get it basically from animal foods. And in a low carbohydrate state, you don't even have a competition at the receptor site. You get more than enough, and then the body probably even excretes some of it as oxalate. So the last thing you want to do is give yourself a high dose you're then likely to go. Now, there is a proviso in this. If you're consuming pasteurized milk and you're consuming a lot of beef jerky, which beef jerky dries it out and you pretty much lose both taurine and vitamin C. It's nice. I enjoy beef jerky, don't get me wrong. I'm not poo-pooing it, but you do lose these nutrients in a big way. Under those circumstances, your body will automatically can become deficient in vitamin C. And this is where some of these people that have done, like overcook their meats, got rid of all the moisture and all that because they don't like, some of these people that have done experiments ended up getting like low-grade scurvy. We've been doing it, I've been doing it about 3 odd years now, nearly. Other people have been doing it for 12 years. Not an issue. But I have my meat medium and medium rare. So, so even, there's still pretty much, it's soft and bloody in there and all that sort of stuff. And so it's a non-issue for me. But a lot of people, if you're basically, and I have raw milk as well, so I get additional vitamin C from that as well. So I get more than enough. So I'm definitely not going to supplement because then it could become a problem. And I do a lot of physical work and exercise and stuff like that. So if there was anything going to happen, it would have happened now quite some time ago, So yeah, it's well overrated on a carnivore diet. But as long as you're not doing dried meats continuously, I do enjoy jerky. I sometimes can binge on jerky now and then, but I do have regular meat as well. Really important. How much calcium per day and what supplements? It's a waste of money. Do not take supplements at all. Absolutely not. Contraindicated. and even any of the research. What you need to basically do is basically get it from your diet. The more protein and vitamin D you've got in your diet, the higher the uptake of calcium. Many people do not even do dairy on a carnivore diet, and because they do very high protein intake, they actually have calcium levels higher than the other people that consume dairy. So it's a myth. There's actually research that shows that dairy actually increases uptake with more protein. Calcium increases uptake. So, and then as long as you're getting enough taurine, taurine is an osmolalate, which is in meat, and taurine regulates calcium, sodium, potassium, magnesium, all these. So that is why when you're getting enough meat in your diet, you don't have electrolyte imbalances. You don't have any of these issues, not even calcium derangements, because the body will excrete excesses that are not required. Very important, you know. It's the taurine in the diet, basically. So that's why overcooking your stuff, which a lot of people do, I usually recommend that at least they get a bit of taurine supplementation just to make sure they're getting enough taurine in their diet, this sulfur amino acid, which is critical for a lot of these biological processes. But no supplementation required. Have you just, Gary, have just been told WA health workers all require masks mandate while at work? Oh, joy. In the Kermit kingdom of sand gropers. Nice one, mate. Nice one. I can tell you, your Sir Sand Groper, the big one, the actual big one. Where is that little green frog? Where is he? He's been hiding, hasn't he? He's been hiding. God, we'll turn him into frog legs and sell him off to the French. Yes, it's bloody crazy. It's bloody crazy. Yes. But we could send Blinky up there for you. You probably don't want to see him. But yes. But anyway, yeah, it's gone crazy. It is gone crazy. They are, with all this new evidence coming out showing how absolute bullshit their narrative is. I mean, exposed to multiple people, myself. The other, my brother's actually sleeping with a person for negatives, high sensitive. He's actually tried every single one of them to see whether, just in case, the other ones didn't work. So I said, you're crazy. I said, I hope you're putting this down as a tax deduction. Because basically, I mean, he spent well over, a couple of $100 just on all these tests. But anyway, he said, look, I have to do it. And look, he's probably doing the right thing in that regard, because with the rules, you still have to comply to some extent and all that. So, he's still got a business, and obviously if it got out that he was basically not complying, probably could have problems. But, since he's negative, they can't tell you can't work if you're negative, So if you're negative, you're negative. So pretty much, yeah, it's crazy, Gary. It's crazy. Yeah, absolutely crazy. Yes, the world's gone mad. Absolutely. Harry reads like antioxidants, NAC. Well, you don't need NAC. Your body, if you get enough protein, your body can create it. You don't need it. That's just nonsense. I think it's a wasted supplement, a waste of money. If you're a kibble eater and stuff like that, you probably need it, because you're probably not getting enough nutrition. If you're on a carnivore diet, you don't. Alpha lipoic acid, only if you've got a condition. Like I usually recommend when people have got a lot of, like, somebody comes off and they've actually got a lot of damage, a lot of tissue damage with a lot of reactive tissue due to a lot of matrix metalloproteinases, or, the crappy stuff, like a lot of glycation or damage of whatever, and a lot of reactivity around the body where you need a massive electron doning to stabilize tissue. especially, you know, if you've had like a major lung issue, alpha lipoic acid is really good as a short-term thing, as a master electron donor, goes in there, donates electrons to all this unstabilized tissue and stabilizes it. But because it does that thing, you don't want to be taking it every day, because it can really, it's like taking excessive, you still need some ROS signaling. You know, like when you exercise, you need ROS signaling. Alpha lipoic acid should never be taken after exercise, ever, ever, ever. It should only be taken when you've basically got quite a severe damaged liver, heart, any lungs, in case with long C19 and stuff like that. Only for those purposes. It's not a regular thing. I don't recommend, you know, I've taken it in the past. I don't take alpha lipoic acid anymore. I took it for specific purposes to, you know, heal my liver. But, you know, I used to be a heavy drinker, and pretty much high fructose as well. So I had a lot of fatty liver. So I needed to, and a lot of fibrosis. So I needed to fix that electron donor and then use the taurine to remove that fibrosis over time. So yes, really important. As I said, I was really a wreck. If you'd see me a decade ago, you'd probably 11 years ago, you'd think very differently. You know, where now I'm much lighter and in a much better state than what I was. So, but I would not waste my money. Should be taken at night. No, if you want to take anything at night, take taurine. That's the best thing to take. It also increases GABA, improves melatonin, and you know, is way better. It's what's in meat, but we probably don't get enough because we've depleted because of a lot of oxalates and many other things that, and xenoestrogens in our environment that tends to deplete taurine. So we probably need some supplementation. Unless we were in a tribal area away from all this modern life, we probably wouldn't deplete as much. And so we probably wouldn't need to supplement taurine either. But it's a different situation, especially when you're older and your biosynthesis actually drops due to two factors. One, the main factor is because the body starts prioritizing other things for long-term survival. And then the other thing is more senescence. So you've got less energy to be able to do a lot of these biological conversion processes. So at that stage, something like, you know, if you're in your, you know, a much later age, some of these supplementations like NAC or, you know, whether they're just a plain old supplement, may have some value because it takes away some of the conversion burden on the body, you know, as a biohack more than anything else. So, you know, you've got to think laterally, you know, about these things. You know, when do I need it and what age and at what age stage? You know, so our ancestors did not continuously consume these things. Harry, how so pathetic is the fiber propaganda? I've heard bullshit like eat a banana peel, cauliflower leaves and other bullshit are richer in vitamins, minerals, and yeah, I know, it's just bullshit. Most plants are very poor in all micronutrients. There's plenty of research to show that that is the case, and it's just basically bullshit. It always has been. I mean, you only have to look at the National Institute of Health and their readings on the content. You basically see hardly any plants that basically even qualify for certain levels. Probably the only thing is magnesium, the chlorophyll, but everything else very low, and pretty much all the other stuff is just contraindicated. And if you take a look, the only plant foods that are actually the ones that are fortified, which is bullshit man-made products. You know, so it's just crap. And fiber actually does cause problems in the enteric system. Hopefully I'll get that video out next week, which will cover that specific subject matter and explain some of the, like the the big gut issues and the fiber. You know, I've done one video on that, but there's another angle to it that is a bit more, let's say, like it'll insert a nail this long into this bullshit, notion. So yes, I'm going to try and make it an amusing video as well. Yes, really rub it into the veganerized community. Why not? Pushing people to try and plant. Yeah, I know. Look, it's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. Even a child, if you actually ask them, what do you think, little kitty? Back in the 1940s, before we had refrigeration, people consuming 70% of their diet was coming from animal foods, and 1/3 or 30% was coming from plants. And they were much healthier. Now they're doing the opposite. Which do you think is the problem, little kitty? They'll tell you, well, it's obviously the modern one. You have to be completely and utterly brainwashed or brain dead to not see the obvious. I think when you I usually, that's how bluntly, I don't argue with people. I just say, back then, before refrigeration, it was 70-30, and now it's 70-30 the other way, and we're less healthy. And you can go and find all those stats and all that. So your narrative is absolutely wrong. It defies logic. Have you thought about it? And what I'm doing is a diet similar to what the Inuit used to do and the Maasai do nowadays, dairy and meat, because that's the majority of what carnivores do nowadays, more like the Maasai they consume. And they've got centenarians amongst themselves. My great-grandfather was 107, and he hated vegetables and only ate dairy, goat dairy it was, primarily because they were goat herders in Greece on the west coast. It was basically dairy and meat. So these people, when they say, oh, isn't that, oh, and I go, well, I'm just having the Maasai or Inuit, the Maasai Inuit diet. Seems to have done them quite well for multiple generations. They don't even have a word in their vocabulary, in their language, for cancer or heart disease. I wonder why. I'm a bit arrogant in that regard. I know some people sometimes find me a bit abrasive because when I hear bullshit, I basically, my bullshit meter goes up, and I usually, will just basically, I'm that uncle that sort of slaps you across the face and says, you're an idiot. So it doesn't always go down well. Let me put it that way. Yes. But anyway, I think it's colourful for you guys because you're not on the receiving end. G'day, Fluffy Rainbows. Good to see you. There's nothing to be sorry about, There's always, you can always watch it later. The whole, you've missed there. You can just go back and watch an hour and 12 minutes from this point on. From that point on at a later stage. Yes, we got to amuse ourselves. Not a problem. Not a problem. Yeah. The timing is critical because of the cortisol thing. In that regard, we don't want to over magnify some of the signaling growth pathways. It's more the signaling to the body because we want to basically utilize the synthesis faster and then drop back into autophagy as early as possible. So that's the reason for that purpose. I don't want the magnification, signaling. You don't need a lot. Even in the fasted state, when they were putting in leucine, it was just, and they were doing it experimentally when? In the middle of the day, midday, because that's when experiments are done in labs. So very much what I'm sort of saying would be very similar. But I'm more on the ancestral side, thinking of the lowest point in cortisol at around 11 o'clock. Yep, best time. That's when I also put in the vitamin D as well. Anyway, unless, it's a sunny day and you're outdoors, God, you might as well use it. It's free. Everything is being inverted. Yep. Yeah, basically, androgenization in full tilt. Yes, taken to the extreme. Exactly, HD. Nutritional aspect that we get. Jacinda's, yep. But key investment tips. Look into Petco. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so it's really, really important that we make these. I think all of us need to take some responsibility. I mean, when I interact with my partner's sort of those kids or whatever. The funny thing is they actually gravitate to me, ask me things all the time. It's really interesting, you know. So, but they are stronger characters, you know, but they do consider me a wise old man, and they'll come to me and actually have a bit of a chat and ask me things, which is good, you know. So, you know, and I'm always, you know, it's not like, you little kiddies, you better. No, it's nothing like that. It's all, you got to be friendly. You got to, with children, all that. You got to be firm with children. They respect firmness and rules, you know, and but also be, you know, tease them a bit, you know, I do, and be friendly and try and get the message across in a very, you know, interactive way. So I think a lot of older people have lost that ability to interact with young people. I thank myself that I haven't. My father's the same. He will talk to a younger child right through to older people, older than him or younger than him. And I think a lot of us sometimes gravitate around our own circles, our own age group. Get out of your age group. Traditionally, we functioned in families that were sort of multiple generations, like grandparents, parents, and kids in the same household. And that was normal because we interacted with all the different age groups. That is the normal thing. To only interact with your own age group is to basically not to live a full life as a human. You've got to interact with all age groups without coming across creepy, obviously. Yes. Yes. Biology is passé, Helen. You should know that. Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's only the top 10. Top 10. It's like basically, yeah, an F fest for them. The rest of them are basically just groveling little idiots, soyified idiots. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yes, I know from other people that I've spoken to, younger people, and they've understood, and I've told them, get out of that place. Go and meet normal people and have normal conversations. Get out. It's a toxic environment. You don't want to be part of that. And I say to, especially to women, I say, you know, respect your body, respect yourself. If you want other people to respect your body and consider you, you know, of value, respect it. Don't just frivolously throw it around, so to speak. You know what I mean? Yes, exactly. Very much. Unfortunately, is the modern world. Yes. I actually also believe in basically having, you know, like in the past, they used to have sort of not co-ed. They used to have separate girls' schools and boys' schools. I think boys do better in all boys' schools, and girls do better in all girls' schools. That's what I found in my own experience. And I actually went to an all boys school, both a public all boys school, which was Newtown High, and then even in Greece, basically at second high school, which was, you know, so basically again was all boys type type thing for certain ages, but then it changed, you know, then it started becoming mixed. So, because this would have happened in the past, you would have been with your family and you would have only had contact with men at a much later age, you know, and so you have already built you would have built yourself as a personality, you know, and built out of a child personality, which is really important. That's the other thing. You should send. I started working in my father's business at the age of about, I was about 10. 10.5. I think 10.5. My first job outside the home was at about 13. So I was 13 years of age, my first job outside. My father started when he was 12. And this was back in, we're talking about now the 70s. But what it did was it matured me much faster than my peers. I found myself, I couldn't really have really much of a conversation. I could only interact much better with older kids that were more mature. So I matured much faster. And I think you become more responsible, and also you become, less of a child, I understand now why I got in, or I became, got into the student council and was one of their leaders, and was able to take kids out and get up in front of hundreds of kids and just talk to them and get them out in protests and all sorts of things. I know why I could do that, because I had that natural capacity to do it. But that's because my father instilled it into me. I used to be, as a small child, I was very introvert, but my father pushed me, kept on pushing me, get out there, son, get out there, stop being a child, man up. And that was the best thing that it did. I actually, let's say, I had a very difficult childhood relationship with my father, because he was always pushy, always demanding that I would be better and better than I am. And I could never keep him happy, and so there was always that push. But I love him to bits now, and I respect him a lot, because it made me the man that I am. I can stand up on my own feet. I can get things done. And if I fall down, I can get back up. Most people can't. And that's the difference. And so, yeah, I think you need to push your children, and you also need to get them in employment early. I mean, my brother, he got his daughter in. He actually paid her wages, but he gave the money to the guy who paid her. She had no idea. But she got the experience. She learned to be a responsible person, and then, by that, she challenged herself. She tried even harder to achieve things. She ended up even, getting in, because she was a judo champion, went overseas and competed for the Australian, via the Australian Institute of Sports. But she got a lot of shoulder injuries from, she basically took on bigger girls because she wanted the challenge. But she sustained more injuries, which really stuffed her long-term Olympic career. Anyway, so, but it's still, she still got there. She still got some international awards and stuff like that. But had she not applied herself, she would have never got there. And that's the difference, But her father kept on pushing, like my father. If you abandon your children, that's the irresponsible father that I was talking about earlier. Abandon your children, they will never amount to anything. They'll be useless to the society, and useless to themselves in particular. So yes. Anyway, yes. Yes, you don't need family anymore. You just need to be plugged in and be told by Mark Zuckerberg what to do and how to live your life, and do little stupid things to entertain these multi-billionaires. Yes, they need to be entertained. They're bored out of their life. So they just need all these kibble eaters just to get into their metaverse and entertain them. Yes. What a lifestyle. And there's a demographic winter. Yes, it is. The Western world is dying, basically. It is dying. The West is dead. If it continues this way, they are dead. And those societies are just collapsing. Exactly. They can. Thank you, Lukey. I try to do my best. I found you through Bart, and because he shows up on a Kinberry Live. Okay. Okay. General Jane actually found out Bart and then found me from Bart. Yeah. Oh, fair enough. Yeah, it usually is like that. What I've found is a lot of people have either seen me on another somewhere else, or on another channel, or they've actually seen me via somebody like Bart or Pim or whatever. I do have quite a lot of subscribers that are basically are completely new, don't subscribe to any, even some people that are not even carnivore that subscribe to me. So, you know, there's a mixed bag of people. Everybody's welcome. I know I've even had a few vegans that have turned up and all that. A few disrespectful, and we kicked them off. But some that are really, you know, that are trying to get some information to help them out. And I don't mind giving them some information to help them in that way. At the end of the day, I do care for other humans. You know, what I don't give a flying toss is for misanthropists and people that are, you know, really want to harm others and really, you know, are just arseholes. And unfortunately, a lot of the vagunarized community is full of fanatics that hate humanity. They are misanthropists, truly hate humanity. They're lost. And it's usually their leaders. They've lost the plot. A lot of their supporters are just basically, you know, brainwashed, ill-informed, ignorant people. And one can only hope that they wake up to themselves. It takes time. It depends on the person, but yeah. Anyway, thanks for finding me and thanks for subscribing in that regard. Yeah, it is pretty low, the attention span nowadays, but that's why people don't learn anything. That's why we don't have the Einsteins. We don't have any great thinkers anymore. People just want it instant. Well, you've got to work hard to get anything in life. It doesn't happen instant. It'd be great if it did, magically. Oh, there it is. It's appeared. I don't have to do any work for it. But unfortunately, reality, you do, unless you want to be somebody else's biatch. You know what I mean? Anyway, Scotty, good to see you, mate. Yeah. Complete git. Oh, good to see you, mate. It's been a while. Where have you been hiding? With beef liver, I usually cook it in chunks and freeze them to have a bit when I feel like. Yeah, I've done that in the past. I like little containers, and I've basically, done that as well in that regard. But I do love my favorite sort of beef strips that I make, really thin strips, milk, rosemary in the fridge for 24 hours. Takes the flavor of rosemary, baked, oven baked. And then I do quite a lot of layers of those oven baked. And then I'll have a few, and then the rest I'll throw in the freezer, you know, and some I'll keep on the upper shelf that I'll have the next week. And I just have a treat once a week and I enjoy myself. So, you know, I usually, because I know I'm going to pig out, I usually have it once a week so I don't overdo it. Yes, it can be very much. Yeah. If you've got oxalate dumping and all that, you know, a number of us have had coming onto a carnivore diet. I had horrendous amount because I was a big spinach consumer. And so I had a lot of stored oxalate and I went through a horrendous period. So yeah, it wasn't fun. Let me put it that way. And after 4 kidney stones, I'm completely and utterly over it. And that's why, I've even got a supplement, a citric acid supplement, which is an acquired taste. Let me put it that way. I did give Hello Kitty a try, and she tried it and said no. She's probably still at the supermarket at the moment, but anyway. So she gave that a miss because it was just too. But I've used it. But I use lemon juice as well occasionally. I just use lemon juice on my pork, not any of my other meats. Pork and fish, I love lemon juice. It just gives it that. I like the lemony. I put on the fish. I'll always put butter, let it melt, and then once it melts and all that, then I'll put the lemon juice, and the lemon and butter on the fish, really nice. And on the pork, I don't know why, you know. I put it down to when I was a youngster in Greece, we used to have these like on a skewer, these little pork things that'd be cooked over coal, and they basically had oregano in lemon juice, and it was sort of mixed up and all that. And they would, when you actually went and got you'd go δύο σοφλάκια, two σοφλάκια to the person, and they'll actually, δύο is two in Greek, they'd actually put into the lemon juice, and whether it was rosemary, whether it was usually it was oregano or oregano, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And they basically, I think as a youngster, my natural taste buds now is mentally to combine pork with lemon juice. And mentally, I prefer it back. If I have it just without like that, no, I don't like it as much. With lemon juice, I can just scoff down, keep on scoffing with ease. So there must be a mental sort of conditioning from younger age that is still pretty much there. Yeah. So in summer, if I'm actually on a very sunny day, if I've actually exposed myself quite a bit and got good levels of vitamin D, I'm not going to bother with vitamin D supplementation. But if I've basically got it's an overcast day or whatever, it's not that fantastic, I'll take vitamin D on that day. So it depends on the day. We're talking about Tasmania here, mate. I mean, in the Southern Hemisphere, it's like New Zealand and Tasmania are very similar. You basically, our summer is like your autumns or your springs. That's how summers, and we have the occasional day where we get a lot of sun. Well, that's about it. So in the past, people used to consume a lot of fish down here. It was the culture was, and people used to get far more vitamin D from the food source than what they do now. Unfortunately, the diet's changed very radically from the 50s and 40s and 60s, the way it was compared to today. But I do take, at the moment I am taking, and that's just because I'm being cautious, maintaining my levels. That's primarily it, because I know that my immune system is probably using all the stored D, the 25 OHD, and I need to replenish it so this doesn't go positive with the people that I hang around. Got it? That's the reason why, Robert. Oh, God. Exactly. That shit. The only thing that will give you is hormesis, but I can basically just put my back against the wall where the wires are in the home and get from the electromagnetic fields. I can get some hormesis for my body, some stress. I can stress my body by doing exercise. I don't need sulforaphane for hormetic effects. And the rest of it's just nonsense. And it's all associational, Yes, it seems to have some affecting certain pathways, but it's not like it's slam dunk. It's not like it's really slam dunk. It's sort of it's more associational, most of that research. So, and really, nah. Choline, my dear friend, choline, 123. Choline, yes. The only nutrient that can actually export liver out of the fat is choline. Yes. The same stuff that is for neurotransmitters, like acetylcholine, that stuff. Most people can actually convert methionine. So if you eat a lot of steak, a lot of meat, you'll convert methionine into choline and choline into folate. So you don't need to consume folate. You don't need to consume choline either. So if you have a meat-heavy diet, you'll get more than enough of both those nutrients, plus the B12 from the steak. That's the majority of the population. Now, if you're one of those unlucky people like this guy that can't do some of these conversions, then you need to supplement or consume choline-rich foods. What are choline-rich foods? Liver and eggs. eggs in terms of concentration without putting the other micronutrients into the very high levels. You can have shitloads of eggs with no problems and get plenty of choline. So in one egg, there's about 147 milligrams, is about that milligrams. So if you want to get up to 1 gram, do you want to, oops, 1,000 milligrams divided by 147, it's about 6.8 eggs, 7 eggs. Obviously, you're going to get some choline conversion in your body, and you're going to get some from the actual meat as well. So you're probably about 6 eggs every day will give you all the choline you need to export all the fat you need out, if you're concerned about that you don't have the genetics and that you're one of those 2 to 4% of the people that have those conversion issues. Majority of people don't. So if you're, as long as you're having a high methionine diet, which basically means high amounts of ruminant meats, you're good to go. But as I said, I don't know your genetics. And if you want to play it safe, you can either supplement or eat more eggs. Either one will do it. 4 minimum. 4 minimum if you're a male, 3 minimum if you're a female. Pretty much. Next, bodybuilder Vince Girondo. Yeah, I remember him. Was a big on the steak and eggs diet. Yep, the metabolites, old school, exactly, old school bodybuilders. Yep, they ate raw food, most of them. They were into dairy and stuff like that as well, dairy and eggs. Yeah. So yeah, that's the way the old school did it. And they built beautiful big bodies. And they didn't actually, like all these other guys, they actually cut with all these high protein powders, and then they are starving. They go really down to very low body weight when they do a cut, high protein. And then when they come off it, they go into the carbs and all that, and they just balloon out in size. They become really, yeah. So, or use a lot of roids, as you said, to really to do anything. Those old guys, they used to do it the natural way and build and put a lot of animal foods into their bodies. I remember one guy used to just sit on a whole table. He'd have his whole table full of steaks and raw eggs, and he'd just be downing eggs and that, one after the other. It was absolutely ridiculous. And you're not going to get a biotin deficiency, don't worry, because your body, basically about a quarter of that is all that gets bound. The rest of it is all bioavailable. So you're always getting more biotin than you're binding, so you don't have to worry about raw eggs. And this guy used to consume shitloads of raw eggs and shitloads of, basically, I forget his name. He was a British guy. Just used to sit down and just eat piles and piles, pack piles and piles of meat. And you wouldn't believe how he died. He was basically in his 70s, and he was carrying a fridge. I think it was a fridge up the staircase, and he tripped, and the fridge fell on him and killed him. But somebody at 70, there's not many 70-year-olds that can lift a fridge and take it up the staircase. But he actually fell to his death, basically. Well, he was actually squashed by the fridge. So yeah, what a way to go. But, he used to do the old steak and eggs, and he was basically built like a brick shithouse. And I remember he was on these old British reels where he used to lift people. He'd actually put like this metal thing which they would hold on to, and he would lift these two guys. He'd do this sort of stuff and all that. So it was all entertainment stuff back in those days and all that. But in the media reels and stuff like that. But he was a character. Let's put it that way. He was a bloody character. Sunshine is only Ben Parlis, good to see you, mate. Sunshine is only free now, Harry. Yes, until the permanent lockdowns you're talking about, or Jacinda basically throws Bart into the gulag. Can you imagine Bart in the gulag with Ted? Oh God, there goes the neighbourhood. Yeah, the whole attitude that some had about Yes, C19 burning through the nursing homes was just multiple generational households are the glue for a nation. Exactly. Lost that, and it's a field day for predators and lunatics and manipulators and liars and everything else. Because your grandparents, in many cases, looked after the little kids, and they were wise. That's what we call the wise old people. And so they would tell them stories about their culture, stories about their life, stories about all these sort of things. And they had a connection that basically, because their parents are working and all that, and they did that parenting. It was fantastic, I interacted with some of my older aunties and stuff like that when I went to Greece as a youngster. I miss that so much. When I was young then, as a youngster, you're always, oh, yeah, your auntie and all that. But it's only after when you grow up, you start remembering certain things and you're going, wow, she left an impression on me. She did, I remember one of mum's older sister, Tia Patrula. She was one of those, rural type ladies, loud as you could hear her for miles, loud as, very, a very strong woman. And, she loved the family and her relatives. She was the salt of the earth. She'd do anything for you. Absolutely anything for you. People loved her. And I remember once I was outdoors, I just walked out and I could see my auntie literally just banging something like mad. And there was a snake, one of those that curl up and pounce. I've been chased by one of those on my bicycle. And she just hit it and took it out completely and then grabbed it and said, well, there's another one gone. Well, tell me how many women in today's world would have that sort of courage to turn around and grab a stick and literally take out a snake like that. That's the difference. Those women and those men were made very different, compared to today's. Yeah, it's horrifying, the degeneracy of the human species, not only physically but mentally as well, and character. When I include mental, I include the character side. Yes, very much. Harry has even had former repeaters around. Yes, I have. We're like an intensive recovery unit for repeaters. Yes, we are. Yes. I've helped a lot of people with a lot of issues and all that because they went down the wrong pathway, reductionist pathway, and actually caused themselves more health problems, unfortunately. Repeat's deranged. You can hardly put a couple of sentences together. My father makes more sense and he's older than repeat. Give us a break. And he's got nothing. We've got archaeological evidence, the N15. We've got all this sort of stuff, tribal populations, all sorts of stuff. They got nothing. They just got basically reductionist nonsense. So if they're nice, I treat them nice. If they mean, put them to the fire, the Serpanos fire, very quickly, as you guys know. Elizabeth, good to see you. Yeah, so I used to consume that every day. When I was, not every day, but when I was doing my keto days, and it would be 100 to 150 grams of spinach, cooked spinach, luckily, but still just as bad. You probably left some of the oxalates in the pan by cooking them, but still doing that every day with bacon and eggs. So I'd cook the bacon and eggs. The spinach last, luckily, the spinach last because it's very quick to cook. And so, yeah, as a consequence, but still 4 kidney events later, yes. So there's far too much oxalate in it. When we talk about 50 milligrams is toxic over 50. Spinach 100, which is 3.53 ounces, has about 755 milligrams. It's massive. That's the safe level is 50. And I'm trying to remember the number. How many times over is it? 15 times over. 15.1 times over. That's 3.5 ounces, 3.53 ounces, or 100 grams. It's really nasty, that sort of food. Very, very nasty. Ah, yes, they do. They do. Yes, very much so. I am trying to cut body fat, so I'm eating more leaner meat, actually a lot, but I'm worried to use it as energy to create glucose. As long as you're getting some fat, you're not going to do that. Yeah. You don't need to actually eat lean meat. You just need to eat meat without adding any other fats. That means you're not adding like butter, you're not adding like cream, you're not adding, olive oil, you're not adding all these other things. You're just eating steak. So you're getting, you're eating some fat, you're eating some protein. That's basically it. And you're eating, and if you're eating slightly more eggs, you'll get more protein to fat as well. So that's the sort of stuff that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, necessarily. You don't need to go really lean, and it's not a very good thing either, because you still need a certain amount of fat for your endocrine system, for your, your basically all your hormones, because weight loss is also about having well-regulated hormones as well. So we don't want to go really lean, Elizabeth. What we want to do is basically, even when I talk about like doing a cut, this is really doing a high cut. It's basically getting 30%, of what we'd call the intake being from fat and 70% being from protein. That would be like a horrendous cut where you're only getting, so that, what would that translate? Let's go with 1,000, so we can, or 100, so we can actually work out that. Oops. Oops. Let me do that again. When it comes to protein, it's 4.44, not 4. That's another myth. It's about one to one. So if you divide by 9 and 4.4, the other one's 310, 311, which is sort of that sort of nutrient content we're talking about. The volume, we're not bomb calorimeters, and the other one is about 273. So it's about a 1-to-1, 1 gram to 1 gram. That's what I'm talking about, which basically will give you 70% will be the protein component and 30% will be the fat component. That is a 1-to-1 ratio sort of thing. If you want basically to go the other way, you need to eat far more. That's why basically what I'm talking about, I'm not talking about lean meat. I'm talking a 1-to-1 ratio. I'm not talking about like, yeah, I'm not into chicken breasts or anything like that. No, absolutely not. In that regard. And how lean are you already? If you're too lean, that's when you can your body will end up using more protein. So it depends on how lean, what's your goal. So not very clear, Elizabeth. Send me an email. I'm not going to answer your questions. Send me an email and ask me exactly what your goals are. Precisely what your goals are. so you don't have to privately put information here. Just, I am behind on my emails. I do apologize. I'm quite behind. I'll give you an example. I'll cover so people can't see who I'm receiving emails from, just to be for the privacy side of things. I am a few weeks behind. It was actually at, less than 70. I got it to less than 70. And I looked today, actually it was worse. It's worse today than it was yesterday. Just so you can understand that I'm struggling to keep up with it. So don't get me wrong. So if you can see up there, 95. So oops. While maintaining, I'll have to start culling some stuff out because I'm up to nearly half my allocation. Because it's a free account, I haven't. So there you go. It's not that I got it below 70, and then that was 2 days ago, and I just realized, because yesterday I was sort of running around doing other things, our walks and all that, but so if you have sent me an email, I am a few weeks behind, a number of weeks behind. So probably next week I'll be on my 4th week behind, a month behind. I was about 5 weeks behind. Now I'll be about 4 weeks behind. So yeah, so people have to bet. This is, not my regular gig. I do have a life, and my life is important to me for my own mental health and all that. So it does take time. This is not my livelihood. I don't do consultancies or anything like that, and it takes time to basically. And some of these things I've decided to go through them and just say, look, I'm going to create a video for this, this, and this, and I'll put them down. And if there is a pattern, I'll basically prioritize those sort of videos, so at least people can get some content, and it will hopefully reduce the amount of emails that I get. But there is always going to be a bit of nuancing. I'd rather just get people going on certain things and then to nuance at a later stage, which is the thing. It's not that I'm neglecting you. It's just too many bloody emails to deal with. And trying to make videos at the same time and all that is, as you can understand, there's a lot of work and a lot of stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of things to do in that regard. Yes. But I think I've explained a lot of this. It doesn't matter how much protein, Elizabeth, you have. As long as you've got fat stores, you will never, ever have an insulin to glucagon of above 1.3. And as long as you've got enough glucagon there, it suppresses insulin. It basically, and one is tapering off the other, you'll get demand driven. The only time you'll catabolize your muscles is high insulin. It's like the vagoons, not enough energy, but having high insulin, that's when they basically muscle waste at that point, because they're not getting enough nutrients because their diet's nutrient poor. But in your case, depending on what you're trying to do, I need to get a grasp of exactly what you're trying to achieve. Because a lot of these questions, I've already answered them multiple times about gluconeogenesis does not happen unless it's demand driven. Yeah, and if you've got fat, you're low insulin. If your insulin is not low, you'll know, because basically you'll feel like shit. If you're running higher insulin levels and you can't tap into hormone sensitive lipase, tap into your own fat stores, you'll feel like crap. But if you're not feeling like crap and you're having lean meats and you're not feeling like crap, then you're getting enough energy from your body. That means you're accessing both glucose for the brain and the red blood cells and stuff like that. You're getting ketones enough, and you're getting basically enough for both the brain and other peripheral tissue, and you're getting enough basically long chain fats out of your fat stores to be oxidized for energy, for ATP. So you should not have a problem in that regard. But I'd like to know exactly what you're trying to achieve. I asked it because the new video, Bart versus, he said that much of the meat without fat or without so much fat will raise. No, not really. No. I have, with that, the rat study, very high protein, very lean. And many bodybuilders do the same thing, very high protein that cuts. So that the only time you'll basically, and he should basically make that quite clear, because he doesn't sometimes. Yeah, give him. It needs a spanking on that one. He's right about Shives about fat. I think he was more focused. There's a problem with Bart. Sometimes he gets caught up with the actual point, but he's wrong. Shives is wrong about fat completely. But if you're basically trying to cut, you need to basically access more of your own body fat rather than eat fat. And even Bart would agree that he's actually doing a priming at the moment, a high protein priming at the moment that Raymond's helping him with. So, yeah, otherwise he's contradicting himself. You only turn protein into glucose if your body's run out of fat. If your body's run out of fat, yeah, we'll do that. And if you're not giving your body enough fat when you're very low fat stores, yeah, that can do it. It's a very inefficient thing, but it can do it. And I think you did explain, because I saw that video. I did not get the wrong message. I think you're probably, because you're English, being from a Spanish background, you're translating things in a literal way, where I'm picking up the nuances that Bart's saying, and I think you're getting confused on those things than anything else, Elizabeth. It's more of a language translation for you problem, I suspect, where you're misunderstanding me and him in that regard. And you're also thinking in reductionist terms. You're not thinking about dynamics. These are dynamic systems, our bodies. If you don't provide it with enough fat, it'll actually use your body fat. If it runs out of body fat, then it can use protein and your own protein, because it has to find energy from somewhere, but only under those circumstances. So depends on what you're trying to do. But basically, increasing the actual leucine content will actually push up the muscle protein synthesis and require more energy. So you can get away with eating in a prime. You can get away with actually eating more fat, because all it will do is just ramp up the metabolism. So yes. Anyway, what would I do with that next? Build an online consultancy, maybe in the future, but not now. I got a full-time job, mate. That in 5 years' time will give me a lifetime pension. That means a salary without having to work for it. Got it? So why would I basically give up those benefits? That's why I'm being stressed out lately about losing those benefits. got it. So yeah, later, yeah, I'll probably be doing consultancies and all sorts of things, but then it'll be a bonus, to supplement, but I can actually even, I don't know whether I'll even do bonuses. I actually want to start up right after I get out of my work and get my pension. Then I want to basically move on to starting up my own small business. So, I mean, for me, I do this more to help people voluntarily because I've suffered with cardiovascular disease. It's more for that purpose. It's not, it's not for the money, If it was if it was the money motivation for me being here, I wouldn't be here, NACST. Believe me, I would not be here. This pays absolute shit, and the few donations that people give me and shout me a couple of coffees or a steak, that's fine. That's nice of them to do that. I don't demand it. I don't ask for it. If they do it voluntarily, so thank you, no different. But this isn't my day job, and I don't see it ever becoming my day job in that sense. To become very successful on YouTube, you've got to compromise yourself so much, and I'm not prepared to do that. And become too commercial. Not interested. I'm only interested in the purity of science. I'm not interested in the other stuff. It's just, doesn't really interest me. Anyway, moving on. Talking about vitamin D, is it true we cannot take a shower after? I've talked about that. If it's very at the early stage, because you do get it on the hair follicles and around, you do get some at the both in the deeper in the dermis and epidermis, you do basically get some vitamin D also on the surface, and that is an additional amount, and you could lose that. That is a sort of a, how can I call it, a vestigial. It goes back to our ape days when the chimps basically got it on their hairs. That's how they got it. And it used to go down to the follicles. So basically, yes, that's how they got it. So yes, if you shower, you will lose some, but you won't lose all of it because most of it is much deeper. And so, yeah, it's a bit different, the way we synthesize. We synthesize both in the primitive way, but in a slightly different way as well. So we're more like, you could say, the pigs that basically, tend to have it in their skin. But we do have in our hair follicles as well, because that is a vestigial, something that we inherited from our ape, because the apes, basically, it's all in the hair follicles. So, yes, you will lose a bit, but not a lot. So it's, but I did mention it once, just to be controversial. Why not? Nobody else had talked about it, so I said I'll throw it out there. It was interesting. The sort of, that got the natives excited. I don't need to shower. Yes, the unclean ones. The Punisher. Good to see you, mate. Thank you, mate. Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. It depends, Elizabeth. I do consume some raw eggs now and then. I don't really like the whites. I struggle with the whites. I usually do yolks, and then I'll cook the whites. Even though I'm not concerned about the biotin deficiency or anything like that, but it's just the flavor of the whites doesn't really, the palatability for me personally. I know some other people can cope with the palatability, but I can't. And I'll lightly cook them, scramble them, and I'll throw in a few yolks and do them like that and have them after. So I won't throw them away, don't get me wrong. But for me, the palatability with yolks, no problem. I can have a whole bowl full of yolks and I can just have the whole lot. Not a problem. It's the whites that the palatabilities just doesn't suit me in that regard. So your mum's actually with the taurine. Okay, she's doing higher doses and she's shifted her diet and she's lost 15 kilos and brought down her blood pressure. Great, fantastic. That's what I want to hear. People getting off the meds and Fantastic. That's good news. Did you know the body makes more lipase when eat your keto? Yes. Your pancreas will excrete those things accordingly. And guess what regulates that? Taurine, my dear fellow, taurine. Taurine basically regulates in the pancreas the enzyme production. Yes, it does magical things. It osmotically regulates the electrolytes. It regulates the motility of the gut, how fast it goes. That's why people, when they first come on a carnivore diet and they're taurine depleted, especially if they've done a lot of like oxalates that deplete taurine, that deplete sulfur in the body. Yes, and then they put a lot of these taurine supplementation and fix their stomach acidity, the motility of their gut, so their gut is not flying out and they're not getting, let's say, loose stools. And if it's too fast, it slows down. If it's too slow, it speeds up. It really just gets the homeostasis going of motility of the gut. It's fantastic stuff, meat. It's in meat and things like that. Yes, I did. Yes, that is basically 101. Ah, yes, lovely stuff. Lovely stuff. My kidneys still, whenever I think of them, my kidneys go, no. I will hate you if you have even one leaf. That's what I usually get. My kidneys talk to me and say, no, don't do it, Harry. Don't do it. Yes. So I've been there, done that. Very painful. Yes. We covered that. Good. Is there any protein or amino acid in body fat? Your fat cells are basically made of some protein material, like all cells, so yes, there is in the body, in the cells of the fat cells. Yes, there is. It's not only triglycerides, there are also fat-soluble vitamins stored in the fat cells. Yes, so there are other things that are also stored in fat cells, and the structure of a fat cell does incorporate both proteins and fats. A bit like also your lipoproteins. They are called lipoproteins. Yes, a lot of structures in the body are a combination of fat and protein. It's just they tend to have different compositions, different levels of either one. Now, the exact levels for every single tissue, I remember seeing an old study years ago, but off the top of my head, forget it. I wouldn't remember exactly. I don't think most people could memorize so many values because there's every single tissue type has a slight variation. It's just a long list. So yeah. Yeah, what do you think about taking liquid supplements like D3 and MK4? Look, depends on the quality, depends on what they're using as the oil. That's really big for me. If it's a seed oil, definitely not. If it's a coconut oil or MCT or something like that, probably less of a problem. I would have to find out what the actual makeup of, if they're using a liposomal to put the liquid in, exactly manufacturing, stuff like that. So it'd depend on a few things in that regard. So yeah. Yes, exactly. Yes, I know the feelings. I know the feelings. Yes, I know the feelings. Yes. And I think we covered that pretty much. Okay. Yeah, Frank. Yeah, about consultancy in very successful, imparting this knowledge via online membership. I'd for info, no worries. Yep, I'd pay. Yeah, look, I've actually, for really people really with cancer and really bad conditions, I've done some free consultancies out of my, just because I want to help those people. They're in, that like close to death. There are not many options, and so yeah, I actually even did one last week, which lasted for about 2.5 hours or nearly 3. So actually 3. Actually, it was over 3. What I'm saying, it was over 3. That's right. So yeah, and that was for that person. I know the lady, and she's been a long time subscriber and all that, and so I helped her out with a lot of information. And I showed her some studies which I haven't yet done the videos for. And I gave her copies of them to explain to her why she needed to do certain dosages of certain things. So she's doing very high therapeutic doses of a number of things. Yes. So anyway, there'll be videos on that yes. It'll explain again why animal nutrition can have such strong anti-proliferatic effects and apoptotic effects. So there's more to come to, let's say, to nail those big nails into the bullshit, those long nails. That's, if I do anything on my channel is basically literally slaying all this bullshit that's out there, because there's a lot of it, reductionism and a lot of nonsense. So it needs to be, yes, dealt with, because a lot of people are finding themselves in, yes, a lot of health problems unneedly. Yep, we covered that before. Yeah, they probably are. Well, the thing is, leucine and choline, obviously, you can get it from the diet. You don't need to supplement at all. And taurine, you can get it from the diet. We just supplement because a lot of us are not ancestrally. And we've got a lot of damage which we need to correct and fix. And once you've done that, then it's, if you've basically really healed really well, I'm still reluctant to not include a bit now and then, because our biosynthesis goes down and our density, our mitochondrial density, is not the way our ancestors were. I mean, I always give the example of a lady like Mary Ruddock, who's in her mid-40s, who's, for Western standards is very fit and very strong, but couldn't actually keep up with an 80-year-old up a hillside. That person, throughout their whole life being on an ancestral diet in those tribal areas, has got good mitochondrial density. They've had a low deuterium diet for all their life. They haven't damaged those nanomotors, and they've got much more density. So each time they actually have more stearic acid and more reverse electron transport, when they clone those additional organelles, those mitochondria, they're actually cloning ones that are fairly healthy. And as a consequence, they're just maintaining good biogenesis and good density. So within those folds within where the outer part, where the protein gradients is, between those folds are all these electron chains. And what they do is, over time, if you get too much neutrons in there, you damage them. And that's from eating too much carbs and that. And so a Maasai may have still, have lost 10% of that, of the electron transport components in each one of those. We may have lost up to 50, and even more. Some people that have done chemo and other things that have damaged their mitochondria to horrendous level. And that's why, when it comes back, cancer comes back, after initial remission after the chemo, when it comes back with a vengeance and kills the person, because their energy levels are in the toilet and their mitochondrial density is shit, and they basically cannot fight it anymore. So yeah, who's doing witchcraft with radiation? Yeah, somebody should be asking that question. Obviously, taurine, as I've shown you, is chemoprotective. High doses of taurine. If people go down the pathway of chemo, I usually put them on 10,000 IUs of taurine. Sorry, 10 grams of taurine. Sorry, not thinking vitamin D. My mind's, yeah. Anyway, 10 grams of taurine, which is very high, because usually even for like C19. I recommend only 4, and I do 4 at the moment. But if somebody's basically got cancer, I've got them on 10 grams of taurine. And if they're on blood pressure meds, I work them up slowly and make sure that their physician is working with them to adjust their meds and get them off the meds, because it brings down the blood pressure. And so I usually work them right up to 10 because of the high apoptotic effect and suppression of cell proliferation as well. Yes, that video will be next week, and it'll explain in detail how taurine does this magical stuff as well. Meat is magical, even anti-cancer. Don't listen to the crackpots out there with the mTOR activation. When your insulin to glucagon is low, 1.3, IGF-1, taurine, mTOR, and insulin are going to be low as well. You'll only get enough signaling for the muscle protein synthesis. You won't get these excess exaggerations. That only happens when you combine sugar with meat, with lean meat and sugar. That's when you get more magnification of mTOR. That's why all those bodybuilders don't realize you don't need that level of activation, because you're not going to get, there's a rate limiting. You're not going to get more protein synthesis. You get protein synthesis being signaled and driven by leucine. Above that is basically pushing other growth pathways, which you don't want in your system, unless you want to get cancer and all sorts of other things. Yeah, I know, it's a crazy world we live in. Yes. But I'll be getting into that next week. So you guys have got more ammo against the crackpots out there. That's the whole idea. And I want just healthier. And so, yeah, I'd love to have more time, but yeah, life isn't always meant to be easy in that regard. Yeah, it is satiety. Yeah. Yeah, I have done cuts in the past, so yeah. Keep the olive oil out. You don't need it. It can oxidize. And not as bad as the other seed oils, but it's still definitely not. Whey protein, I don't recommend any supplements. Just eat real food, real animal food. If you want to basically more protein, dairy and eggs, combine that and get plenty in there. It's actually been shown. If you actually put whey in the first 30, like if I'm going to recommend whey, I recommend it in the first 90 minutes after exercise. That's when you're going to get that peak sort of signaling, but then it drops off rapidly. If you don't follow it on like a casein or stuff like that, something that slowly absorbs, you will not get long. You actually can be quite catabolic. So if you were actually to spike yourself up with whey and then not actually have some of these other proteins and all that, not have like a steak and stuff like quite a bit of protein, you actually can lose some of the advantages. But if you actually then follow it on with a lot of steaks and eggs and stuff like that, you can sustain muscle synthesis out to 8 hours, which is massive. Far more than you can do with powders, which is only a couple of hours. That's the difference of animal foods. They understood that in the past, but people are just too lazy now, and all they do is they whack all this, and at the end they don't see the gains, and they go, I'm not getting the gains, and they go, oh, I better use roids, or I better fatten up with sugar to get more insulin, or pump myself with insulin, which is contraindicated. If you go and see the leucine, muscle protein synthesis, you don't need insulin, even in a fasted way. My dirty fast with leucine, you still get muscle protein synthesis, nearly as good as somebody with meat and leucine combo. Exactly. So it's the leucine, always has been the leucine content. And the thing is, what does whey work very well in protein synthesis? It's a very high leucine source. A branched chain amino acid source is whey protein. That's why. But you also then need that sustained, because signaling and then synthesis over a number of hours. You need then to put in you've done the signaling. Now you need to put in the the material, which is the protein, and quite a bit of it. And it's much better from animal sources because you don't get this influx where the body can't, it's getting too much to manage, where by digesting it, it'll be in the stomach and it will slowly digest and release some of that stuff into the gut, absorb it. Then over a couple of hours, it will slowly release, absorb, and within a couple of hours, you'll have digested it all, and you'll have also absorbed it at a rate, at the enzymatic rate, at what your enzymes can do. When you use these powders, you're actually just forcing your body with too much. The utilization is half. That means down to 17. So plants have got a utilization of 17%. So forget about bioavailability. Bioavailability only from animal foods is very high, but then the actual what the body can utilize in any moment is 17% from powders and 17% from plants. That's why from plants you get shit, because low bioavailability, and you're only getting 70% of that low bioavailability. So you're actually getting nothing unless you're having plant powders with roids, like a lot of these vegan cheats do. And on the other, because they can do it nowadays, because they can cheat, they can take roids and they can take these powders. But and still, even these powders are 17%. But even the animal-based powders, they've got higher bioavailability, but lower utilization, 17% as well. So more of it ends up being potentially, because it can't be used, turned into glucose, especially in a glucose-rich environment where you're putting in sugar as well, as many of these bodybuilders do. So because the glucagon will temper down, will control the gluconeogenic side of things. So it'll be all sort of balanced. That doesn't happen when you're doing these sort of, like a lot of people do nowadays, the modern crap. So keep that in mind. So yeah, I would stick to, if you're going to have whey, get a good quality one, a bovine one, a good quality, because if it's one of the others where they've actually put in a whole lot of fillers, it's not real whey. It's sort of whey with some bovine whey with a lot. It has to be 100% whey, bovine whey, 100%. It's not 100%. There's going to be a lot of other filler and crap in that. You don't want to be putting that stuff in your body. Believe me, it's not good. And also, you don't want to be putting a lot of powders, because also, guess what? Another thing, they are very high in deuterium. When you process food, the deuterium isotopes go up. So, g'day, Joe. Just noticed you there, mate. Just noticed you. Yeah, that's taurine again, causing homeostasis of basically that. I've discussed that before. Iron, it's a non-question. Whoever gets basically on. I've had now a number of people who had hemochromatosis, took good doses of taurine, fixed their hemochromatosis completely. It's basically because even iron metabolism is regulated, like all the other minerals, again by our dear friend taurine, which is the sulfur amino acid in animal foods, meats and seafood primarily. Yeah, I need to contact it. I just haven't got around to it. I've got so many. I've got a class of videos I want to do to get out. So I'm focused on getting my videos out for all these cancer ones and everything else. That's my focus is at the moment, and dealing with my emails and all that. Once I've got all that out of the way, then I'm going to basically start contacting people like Mary and others. At the moment, my schedule is right up here, so big. I'm way behind. I'm months behind my schedule on everything. And I need to get that material done, which is really important for a lot of people that are waiting for it, because they've got a lot of different health conditions and all that, and they need the material. So it's taking me time, yes, but yeah, there's only so much I can do in a daytime, is the reality. Let's not use that sort of language, Lukey, because we do not have any studies that can actually show that. So, but if you eat a species inappropriate diet, you're more likely to cause a lot of derangements and health problems. That is quite clear. And even archaeology shows that when people went very high plant-based, in the early parts of agriculture, we saw that their skeletal frames were much smaller. They had more bone issues, more spurs, certain bone deformities, and also these white spots on their skulls that were basically from iron deficiency. So yes, people that basically, but the repeat diet is more of a animal-based, lean animal-based, which is an oxymoron. How can you actually be promoting lean animal and then at the same time sugar as a combo? It's just ridiculous. How would that ever have been in the natural environment like that? What, you killed an animal and you cut all the fat away, threw the fat, and then search for tubers so you could have your tubers with your lean meat. I mean, how bloody ridiculous. None of it makes sense when you actually, even the average child, when you say that to the average child, they'll look at you and go, are you for real? Oh, are you on drugs or something? Well, Ray's probably on drugs just to keep his mind functioning. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. Neither can confirm nor deny that, but having seen him in his deranged state in recent times, where he's been on Robbie's sort of channel and a few others, where he doesn't even appear, he's just voice. You can imagine how bad he looks. The cognitive dissonance in that man is beyond a joke. It's really nice of you, Joe, that you do miss us. Thank you, mate. How long does protein synthesis signaling last? Depends on how much aminos you're putting in. If you eat a big meal, my dear, you shove down quite a bit of meat down your throat, you will basically have for quite a few hours. Depends. Very much depends how much you've ingested. So if you have a really big meal, Elizabeth, you can sustain much longer. And you don't have to I'm just being facetious now. You don't have to shove it down rapidly down. If you space it. I mean, I usually have, obviously when I'm at work, it's a bit of a bother. I have to have 2 meals because I usually will spend, half an hour, when I'm at lunchtime, I'll get something and I'll have something. And I'll have some snacks, like some beef jerky snacks and stuff like that, some eggs on the side, and I'll just have them while I'm working. And then as on my breaks, and then basically I'll have in the afternoon, about 3 o'clock, I'll have my actual big meal. And then I'll probably spend about 15 minutes in the tea room. I'd prefer spending a bit longer, but you're at work, which is the way it goes. But when I'm at home, I can spend and eat, over about half an hour to an hour, really enjoy the meal and just, not having to shove it down, but eating it over an hour and getting a lot of food in until I'm full. I've had enough. So I don't think my bones or muscles are going to have many problems. Let's put it that way. I'm growing muscles without doing very little exercise. And even Hello Kitty, my next door neighbor, she's been basically growing her muscles. She just does a bit of yoga and stuff like that and a bit of walking. She does no weightlifting whatsoever. I gave her little weights. She occasionally may do a bit. And we're talking about little 1.5 kilos. We're talking about nothing here. She's been putting on muscle just from the sheer amount of meat she's been eating, the leucine going in there. So yes, very much powerful stuff, leucine. And if you enhance it with basically tearing down your tissue by exercising, hypertrophy type training, yes, then you'll pack it on even faster. Yeah, it very much is. A lot of societies around the world are very much Ray-Pettish style, unfortunately, and it's supposed to be good for the thyroid, but you had hypothyroidism eating exactly that diet, and eating a carnivore diet and getting the sun on your back. you're completely in remission. You're asymptomatic. But I said you need to keep those levels of vitamin D to the therapeutic level for a whole year, for 12 months, for a whole year. And you need to be strict on your carnivore diet for that amount of time as well. And then we can basically be certain that we've silenced those autoimmune genes and your body is operating again properly and all that. So yes, you have to be strict, my boy. You have to be strict. No pain, no gain. I know that many herbivores eat meat, but I've also seen that carnivores consume plants. Yes, that's true. My cat usually eats grass and then vomits. Is there a reason for this? Yes, she's trying to get rid of fur balls, all their hairs, because they lick themselves all over. That's actually how they get their vitamin D as well, from their hairs, their hair follicles, which I was talking about earlier. They lick their hairs, they get their vitamin D. But also they get a lot of hairs, and they have to eat grass to basically bind the fiber in the grass, actually binds all the hair follicles, and then they can get rid of it. That's why. If you take a look at all the stuff that they're throwing out, there's a whole lot of hair follicles in it. And look, and all animals are opportunistic. What it means is, this is why, for most of our existence, we were super hyper carnivores in a very cold environment. We were right down to the tropics. There was frost. So nothing really grew, a lot of plants. It was only grass stuff. And that's why the Delta 13 isotope was very pronounced in the bodies of our ancestors, which meant that they were eating ruminant, and the N15 the Delta 15 nitrogen was very high as well. And that because they were primarily consuming ruminant animals, land-based animals, because you only get Delta 13, the carbon type, if you're eating C4 plants. C4 plants are basically grasses. That's what the cows and the ruminants were eating, grasses. And the N15 means that it's coming from an animal source, the protein source. So that's how we know that what we ate, that we're super hyper carnivores. But once you get into the interglacial period, my dear, the interglacial period, which we're in now at the moment, since 20,000 years ago, that warm period means plants become available again in the environment. And that's how we were able to create agriculture. But also the animals become leaner. And what happened in the last 30 to 40,000 odd years, our brains shrunk. It's about 40, 50,000 years, our brains shrunk by 10% because the animals started becoming leaner and leaner. And this is why we couldn't get enough energy for our brains and our bodies. So we started hunting all over the world. It spread like mad, but also we basically had outgrown the sort of the energy, the traditional energy source. And so we shifted to tubers and then eventually to other plants more and more for energy because we were deprived from energy. Now we've got too much cheap energy, food energy. But then it was, seasonal and very rare. And most people then would eat massive amounts of plants in those 2-3 months where you could actually get tubers, cook them. Because remember, back in those days, they didn't have refrigeration. They didn't have anything like that. Even the Hadza, I remember Mary Ruddock was talking about the Hadza eating some tubers seasonally when they were available. So they would cook those and eat them with the meat. Now, they have no idea that they're engaging the Randall cycle. So by cooking, having sugar with the meat, a lot of, those fatty animals towards the end of when they've become bigger and grown towards the end of summer, in the fall, so to speak, they become bigger and all that. What happens is those animals and the fruit that is around, you're combining the two. What are you doing? You're engaging the Randall cycle and you basically become fat. And then you've got the fat for the leaner periods of the year. So we don't need to hunt fat. We can produce our own fat through the Randall cycle activation. That's how we do it nowadays. All animals can do that. That's always existed. There's there's a fish that actually does it big time. But all animals have been doing it for a long time. It's a natural thing. Actually engaging the Randall cycle is not a human thing. all animals can engage the Randall cycle. Even basically, if you look out there, rats in New York are becoming very fat, obese, and because they're eating a obesogenic diet. They're actually, people are throwing away their burgers and their fries and stuff like that, and the rats are eating their fries and burgers and stuff like that, and they are, like humans, engaging the Randall cycle and basically fattening up and becoming diabetic. Yeah, the rats in New York are more diabetic than rats elsewhere. They're the most diabetic rats and in the world. Yeah, the New York rats. Yeah, they really do. Those rats are really engaging the Randall cycle. So, yeah. Yes. Most people don't know that. But if you Google it, you'll find out. It's well known. They've even done experiments and wondered, why these rats? Yeah, because they're eating shit like the humans in those cities. That's why. Yes. Brazilian rice and beans is the bomb in multiple respects. Praise to the Christ Redeemer for forgiveness. Yes, definitely. Yes. They need to definitely do a lot of that and change their ways. Their kibble eating ways. So I can lick my girlfriend's hair to get vitamin D then. Yep, I knew that there's always one in the crowd, and Ban Palas, you're it. There's always one in the... Yes. Is that part of her body being exposed to regular sun or not? Oh, God. It's always a sick one amongst the crowd, isn't there? God. I mean, Ban Palas, that's my role. I usually, have that sick connotation. As above, so below. HD, don't encourage him. Ban Palas, go after this, do a couple of Hail Marys, whip yourself a couple of times, and give the whipping just in case you get too excited. That could be too much fun for you. Yes. Oh, exactly. Precisely it. Well, the kiddies have to get the hairs out somehow. They've found a solution. Have something contraindicated which causes you to vomit. Yes, and here we are, the kale munching yolk middle class that are putting stuff down their throat that makes their colon get ripped to pieces, and they think it's a health food. We live in a crazy world, a truly, truly crazy, crazy world. Yes. Exactly. That should tell you something. What does a kid like? It loves meat. You throw meat in front of a kid, it'll eat it like mad. Absolutely good. Raw fish, it'll eat it. Raw meat, it'll eat it. Any animal food. Milk, it will suck it down. Well, it's the first food that it ever had. It loves it. Yes. And pretty much any animal food. Now, the other stuff that it will actually consume is sugar, because sugar is an energy source, an easy energy source, and we're opportunistic as a species. Obviously, in nature, there was very limited sugar, so it wasn't a problem. We engaged periodically the Randall cycle. Yep. But if you take a look at the actual tribal people, they've got very low amylase that they produce, even in their saliva. We produce, like people that have been exposed to civilization, agriculture, we produce more amylase in our mouths than they do. It's because ancestrally we ate more things that walk on four legs, and occasionally would have a bit of tuber and a bit between, like the Hadza. But it's only those sort of tribal people that do that because they need some additional energy. Other populations have solved that problem. They go, okay, we're going to become pastoral. So we've got our meat and our milk. So we've got additional food supply. So we don't need to go hunting. We don't need to go and actually dig up plants and stuff like that. So the Maasai, as pastoralists, have focused more on the foods that are coming from their domesticated animals. So a different approach, but that's what they've done. Other populations approach differently. Now, the Inuit can be on an all-meat diet. They don't need, because they've got massive amounts of fat storage animals, because the animals that are in cold climates have more fat on them. So they kill seals, and seals have got a lot of fat on them, plus they're very high in vitamin D. They're, this is, people say, where do the Inuit get their vitamin D? Well, the Inuit get their vitamin D from fish, but in particular seals, seal fat, and seal blubber, and whale blubber. Whale blubber and seal blubber is very high in vitamin D. So they don't have a deficiency at all. They get enough from those sources, both those sources, in that regard. And remember, they cook in whale meat, whale fat, and also seal fat is what they cook in. So the two main fats that they use to cook their meats, their foods and whatever, is basically seal fat is the primary one, and the secondary fat is whale fat when they can get it, because that's sort of seasonal, because it's all the migratory effects. When they migrate up, then they come back, where seals are always around that area, and so it's an easier source. So their number one is seal fat. But seals are a very good source of vitamin D. I think actually even slightly better from memory than what the levels are in whale meat. So it's perfect. So if anybody tells you where do the Inuit, where did traditionally Inuit get their vitamin D? It's not from fish that many people think, and it's basically from the fat of seals primarily. That's what they primarily cook with. And so that's where they got their, and that's also where they got their low deuterium fat as well from. So yes. My food eats your food. Yeah, we're not the same. Very much so. No comments about licking people covered in refined seal or whale fat. Ben Parlis is into any sort of licking, so yeah, just suggest it to him. He's into all sorts of licking. I have standards. I'll only go down for that sort of stuff. I've got standards. Very low standards, but yeah. Yes, very extremely low standards. Yes, exactly. Yes, very much. I'll pass. Hold on, I'm spitting, so I better put this up a bit before it goes all over my keyboard. Yeah, so when I get excited, a bit can come out. I'll pass. What if it's butter? What if it's, you butter her? Okay. Supplemental combination? No? Won't work for you? Ah, well. I'll just, oops. That was Lukey's reply to Ban Parlis. And Oggy, I hurry. After 2 years carnivore, I'm starting having problems with hard stools that are still hard to pass. Any suggestions? Increase your taurine levels a bit. Supplement taurine. The other thing is you could be missing, and that also actually improves the regulation of the gut microbiome. You could be missing a number of bacteria strains. A lot of us are. That's a reality. About 90% of the people are missing a number of the lactobacillus bacteria, which are really important for, they bind with a lot of the animal foods and actually increase the actual the moisture or the stuff. You may not be getting enough salt and fat in your diet as well, which is another issue. You may be dehydrating if you're doing a lot of exercise. That could be an issue in itself. You've got two options, either to hydrate with fat or hydrate with some lower deuterium water content. In the past, when we used to use alpine waters and stuff like that, that also could be an issue. So that does happen in some people. We don't really know. It seems like a gut microbiome issue. People that have had a lot of antibiotic use throughout their life tend to have lost a lot of important bacteria, because remember, all the feces are all full of bacteria, and some of these bacteria also can actually hold on to some moisture much better. So it also may be an indication that you've had some underlying issue, like gallbladder issue, that never got resolved properly. That could be another issue, and it may be, you may need to up your taurine levels as a supplement to try and improve the emulsification. I had a period where I went through something similar like that after I got my stones out. I had a lot of sludge that actually went through the bile ducts, and it sort of clogged them up a bit, and it started causing a lot of problems and pain in the pancreas and stuff. I've been through a lot of these things myself. That's why I know. And by then emulsifying and sort of doing some stuff like that, eventually doing high doses of taurine, eventually it sort of cleared up that after a lot of loose stools and other issues. But eventually it all cleared it up and sorted it out. But yeah, it can be a problem in that regard. Yes. I mean, mine this morning was that about little, plomp. That was it, done. Soft, semi-soft, and that was it. But yeah, there could be a number of things. Just give it a bit of a try and see how you go. If it persists, then drop me an email and give me a total background, everything, what your past diet was, your lifestyle, the whole lot. I need a full story to understand where you were and where you've come, to understand what maybe, also the amount of plant content because of the glyphosate issue, and also very important, the amount of antibiotics. That'll give me an idea of how many potentially we may need to restore some bacteria back in. Anyway, as I said, we are not ancestral. What do you think of chiropractors? They say that we should sleep in certain positions, pillows, but I have always thought that I've been sleeping on grass and caves for thousands of years. Yeah, look, people have got these strange notions that chiropractors are based, just because somebody's a chiropractor, a bone bender, or how does Bart's got a funny name for them. Anyway, that basically as if they know everything about posture. I've been to people like that, and I've been to basically general people that do general physio and stuff like that, and I've got mixed bags. I thought when I changed my diet, I actually saw better health outcomes. Let me put it that way. I've also done a thing when you've got, for you, not for bones so much, bone problems, degeneration really needs nutrition. If you've got a bone problems, you really need to sort out your nutrition very quickly. But if you don't have bone problems, and it's sort of like muscle or nerve type things, something like Bowen, a lot of people probably don't know it. They seem to, when it comes to those sort of conditions, they do claim that they can do things for the skeletal things. I disagree. But when even though, it doesn't mean that just because they can't do everything, even though they claim, I've had personal experiences, and I've sent people who have had like sciatica or any nerve type twitches or stuff like that, or muscle type things related or nerve related things, sorted. I usually go, and sometimes I don't even do a second session. I walk out of a Bowen session, and I'm starting to feel better. And because it's usually certain muscle fibers things need to be loosened up a bit, or certain nerves that need to be basically desensitized. And the Bowen technique is really good for that. Anything that has to do with nerve pain, Bowen technique is really good. I don't go for the woo-woo stuff behind it. It's a sort of a combination of Western physiotherapy with Eastern sort of medicine combination. It was developed in Queensland in Australia. It's called the Bowen technique. But it's really good in terms of that. And I've actually had quick relief for in the past, in my kibble eating days. I haven't had sciatica now for years, but anyway, when I used to get sciatica and stuff like that, I did have some injuries due to my glutes and stuff like that. And I did some stuff here, and I also did a bit of Bowen, and that helped in that regard. And that was just, I wasn't exercising all these muscles correctly, and I was creating imbalances. So that was just a failure of mine some moons back ago. So yeah, that technique. And recently the partner that actually had this problem, and basically she came down with it, probably because of the back issues and all that. She basically went and did Bowen. One session, she came out and said, I feel much better. She thanked me for the advice, So not everything's woo-woo, and some stuff that chiropractors do has some benefits, can relieve certain tension within the skeletal structure. But a lot of the stuff that they actually claim they can do, let's say I take that with a grain of salt. So I'll use these practitioners in the areas that I think that they have demonstrated sort of some efficacy. But in the areas that I think it's woo-woo, I just ignore them. That doesn't mean everybody, even in certain professions, can get certain. I mean, I'll give you an example. Allopathic physicians, the MDs, the standard MD, when it comes to allopathic medicine, it's just an absolute disaster zone. Diet and medicine is disaster zone. But their surgical techniques, next to nothing. If I basically get cut or have an injury, I want them to stitch me up. They are perfect in that. They're well trained. But in the other stuff, nutrition, they've got no idea. And pharmaceuticals is just basically a Band-Aid solution that they don't fully understand, because we don't fully understand our body. So I have misgivings in that regard. And Harud asked me about acupuncture. It does have some, in terms of what I call the nervous system. It can desensitize, a bit like Bowen. This is what I say, Bowen has something similar. Use actually an application of pressure points on those nerves to basically desensitize stuff like that. That's how Bowen works, where acupuncture is a slightly different way of using needles to sort of influence the nervous system. But it does have a lot of validity to it in terms of dealing with pain and all that. But major things like deterioration of your knees and deterioration of your bones in your body, none of this is going to help. You really need good nutrition to fix your body. If you want to be like the Maasai, who are very robust, strong bodies, you need to eat shitloads of meat. You need to eat good nutrition to build good bone structures, good bodies. Now, some of these techniques help with basically things like muscles or the nervous system, sort of derangements or whatever. They can desensitize things. They can basically loosen up certain muscle fibers, and stuff like that. But they can't basically solve the underlying problem, which is in many cases lifestyle and diet. But what they can do is provide short-term relief, a bit like some medicines do, and a bit like basically, but they're not an ultimate solution. Lifestyle and diet are the ultimate solution, and that is an ancestral one, or the closer we are to one, that actually make the difference. But I still use, I would use chiropractors for certain interventions. I'd use acupuncturists for others, and I would also use Bowen technique in particular for things that are related both to the muscles and the nerves, and it's a relationship between the two. Bowen is the way to go to get quick relief. And to basically also it also is a really good thing because it actually can reduce the sympathetic and increase the parasympathetic, and sort of it can actually actually can calm you down. And after you do the technique, you're supposed to not shower at all until the next day, because overnight your body literally goes through all the, because they actually the pressure you in certain places around on the nervous system to sensitize it in a certain way, and it literally goes, you actually feel all these sensations, these nerve fibers firing off in different parts. Even though they've worked in one part, you're getting things firing off in a different part. It's because that's the nervous system. We're all interconnected with the brain right through your spine and that nerve forest that actually comes from that spine and the brain, stem. So all that sort of stuff can send all these signals and basically reset a lot of things. And that's the good stuff of that. So, and this is all basically anecdotally. People have acquired this over thousands of years or hundreds of years. They've learned these techniques, they've tried them and applied them, and they've found that they work. But, degenerative sort of diseases, nope, that's when nutrition plays a role. You can't have a degenerative disc or stuff like that, and without enough protein, and if you're putting in too much other crap that's damaging, none of these sort of approaches are going to really resolve those issues. They may remove some of the pain. They are more like no different than the allopathics with their little pills. Take this pill and you'll feel better for a while. The same thing. It's short-term relief. It's not long-term health. Long-term health comes from good nutrition and things like that. But they do have a place for short-term relief and improving things slightly. Anyway. Ask Ban Parlis, You should be a good boy and have your camel milk, and we'll leave Ban Parlis to have the breast milk. After having raw milk, the first time I noticed that my digestion was permanently changed for the better. Magical stuff. And I only had 4 liters. Shame I can't get it all the time. Yeah, look, it's a bit like that. Sometimes there were days that, like, Jackie called me from City Organic and she goes, "Oh, look, Harry," or Maria sometimes calls me and goes, "Oh, if they've got stuff in or they don't have stuff," and sort of says, "Sorry, we'll have next week." And they know that I'm basically waiting for it, and I'm going, okay, thanks, Maria. So yeah, but yeah, I always tell her, if there's any and you can put it aside, please do it. So yes, I do suck up for the milk. Yes. Well, much more creamier, much more tastier than stuff that gets, and more nutritious as well. Yeah, that's, you actually describe it much better. Thanks, Lukey, for doing that. And it was winter. It wasn't as fatty. It still tasted like real food. Yep. Yeah, it's usually when they're grazing. Yeah, they've got more. It'll be more creamier. And that's also because they'll carve and stuff like that. So that's the other reason for it. It has to be creamier, more fat for the little ones. Yeah, look, it is different. I notice myself between the raw milk that I have and like when I'm at work and I'm using the supermarket sort of pasteurized stuff, even though it's full cream milk, pasteurized, it's not the same. It's just not the same. Very much different. We don't talk about calories here. We talk about food energy. Calories are something you put in a bomb calorimeter and burn it. We oxidize energy, food energy. So the amount of kilocalories that we oxidize depends on the sources of food. And forget about all the myths out there. They're all myths. fats vary quite a bit. I'll give you an example. DHA, which you can't oxidize because it's a structural material, has 9.3 kilocalories. Okay, but we don't oxidize that, so we don't use it as energy. So that's it. It's like protein. We spare it until we're down to nothing, and then we may convert some of it in a very inefficient way. And even protein has 4.44, not 4.44 to be more accurate. The different fatty acids have different types. So the higher the PUFA amount, the higher the K calories. So for instance, it's 9.1 for something like a seed oil. So even if it was organically pressed and wasn't like this sort of manufacturing, and it was not as oxidized or damaged and all that, it'd still be 9.1. So where saturated fats are close to 5 or less. I'll give you an example. Cocoa butter. Cocoa butter, which has a lot of different saturated fats in it, of varied types, its kilocalories in terms of energy is 5.5. It's nearly half. See the difference? And then also a lot of it can do a reverse electron transport signaling through complex 1. That's where what we call the hormonal system and the sort of the messaging within the, not only in the body, but also in the not only in the cell, where you get certain messaging of different energy substrates that are coming through the different receptor sites, like glycolysis, the glucose that's coming through its receptor sites, the GLUT receptors, or on the other hand, the fats that are coming through their receptor site, so the CD36 receptor site that brings in the stuff into right smack in, they're coming right smack in to the Krebs cycle, and the Krebs cycle has got a rate limiting thing. Now you can understand where if you try to push too much of both energy sources, that's why you engage the Randall cycle, because there's only so much energy from both sources that the Krebs cycle can take. It's a rate limiting thing. So anyway, there you've got a bit of a Randall cycle explanation, example of these two pathways. But we don't talk on this. That is sacrilege. I'll send you to Ted's quarantine center, yes, to be whipped and dealt with nastily. No, we do not talk. There are no calories in, calories out nonsense. That is not. We are talking about killer calories in terms of energy, and we always talk about energy, and the body will use energy in different ways or store it if it's not using it, and use it later on in that regard. But I would not bother adding butter or coconut or any other sort of stuff. Just focus on, we're not chasing ketones. That's not part of the trick. We're chasing good health, and basically focus on getting enough meat into your diet, just eating enough steaks. I mean, I do put a bit of butter on my food. I basically, where I put butter is when I have fish, because fish doesn't have a lot of fat. It's very, doesn't have as much fat. So I basically put butter on that, and then I'll put some lemon juice on it. That's the only foods that I actually put butter on is fish. I don't put butter on any other food. I have fish once or twice a week, or different seafood once or twice a week. Some of the other meats like beef, lamb, those sort of, and chicken, I will have those a couple of times a week, and about 3 to 4 times a week, which is the majority of time, I usually have pork. Yes, so, but that's me. And they are fatty cuts of pork with big fat pieces like that. So I don't think I need to add any more energy. There's plenty there. I'm having a break from heavy cream and cheese. Haven't had milk. About 2 years. Let's see how it goes. Look, milk is not for everyone. Not everyone has lactose persistency. Raw milk is easier because it has some of the lactase enzymes, and if you can get some of the actual bacterial strains, I need to do a video on that, to populate, which is some of the lactobacillus, they can actually also help break down, milk sugar. So that's the biggest problem with a lot of people, and they usually get, let's say, issues. So yeah, say no more. And we've covered that. And Sammy, how are you, mate? Good to see you. Oops. Don't do that to me. Don't do that. Behave yourself, StreamYard. Behave. My guy, don't pop bones. He's just amazing healer. Your average chiropractor spends about 10 minutes popping your bones. If you get some help, it only lasts until the next muscle spasm. He spends an hour. Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous. And I find that people that basically understand the musculoskeletal and nervous system are the ones that actually know what they're doing. And the other ones have no bloody idea. That's why I stopped going to any chiropractor and I go and do Bowen, because they actually understand exactly the muscle and the nervous system, how to desensitize and loosen things up. And I find great relief doing Bowen. So if you've never tried it and you've ever had like a sore muscles or sore back or sore or sciatica or whatever, do go and try it. You can get relief and then not have any problems for years sometimes. I mean, the last time was, I went right through without having any problems, and then I did some stupid little things at home where I was trying to pull something which was much heavier rather than actually take the stuff off that, and basically then try and pull it, and pulled it and twitched my sciatic nerve and ended up having to go back again. So that was just me doing silly things. You don't know what you're missing, Van Parlis. You do not know what you're missing. No, you don't eat your cells. Fasting, autophagy is not basically, it's what happens in autophagy is all the stuff, all the gunk inside the cell. When you undertake, when you produce energy, you produce waste products. Now, what are those waste products? Some of it is sort of a protein, fat, there are a lot of different things like that, because that's what our bodies are primarily made of. And a lot of the nutrients have pretty much got that sort of stuff. So you get all these waste products that build up in your cells. It's a good thing to clear out that waste product. It's like in your home, if you've got, let's say you come in, you bring some food in a plastic bag, and you've got all these plastic bags and you throw them in a corner and they just build up. Well, that's your waste. That's the stuff you take out. So you're not eating your own cells. You're basically, autophagy is basically taking the stuff, and the other stuff is apoptosis. That's when you kill off your old cells and you break all the old cells down, and then the proteins and fats from that can be recycled by the body. That's apoptosis. That's cell death. But when we're talking about autophagy, is when you're clearing out the gunk inside your cells and you release that into the bloodstream and your autophagy drops. That's why it's a pulsatile. When you're fasting, your autophagy goes up. Your body clears out the stuff inside inside the cell, the area we call the cytosol, inside the cell itself, but also in the mitochondria, there is some waste product, and all that gets cleared out into the bloodstream. Away you go. And these fats and aminos that are floating through that immediately activate sort of those growth pathways like mTOR and whatever. Immediately, when mTOR raises, even by a bit, you don't need a lot of mTOR. It's just small activation. Even when you put leucine in the faster state, you don't get a massive activation. It's only when you're engaging the Randall cycle and pushing all the growth pathways up very high, that's when you get that. It's usually this low grade level. So nothing to fear in that regard. But that will take that stuff and then build new tissue. It will actually put it in and use it. That's how it's supposed to work. So autophagy is a pulsatile effect. It's not a continuous effect. It's a pulsatile. So, and that's how it's supposed to work. I read an article on the news feed saying that excess choline can cause, it's garbage, absolute garbage. Yeah, I have. It's all associational. It's associational. It's because it's, again, the reason is the high foods in with choline are eggs. And so you know what they mean. Oh, and remember the old guy outlived his parents, 25 eggs a day on average? That guy must have been clotting like mad. It's just nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Again, it's all this cholesterol myth. That's all it is. It's just garbage. Associational research. It's not clinical, proper, experimental, where you just give eggs to someone. Well, we had a case study, this 88-year-old back in 1996. Absolutely no issue. No high triglycerides, no high, even had low LDL because he was eating so much cholesterol, his body was synthesizing less. So there wasn't even he was actually, they were saying, why is this happening to this person? Well, because crackpots don't understand. But this case study was actually, how many people do such a high cholesterol diet to show quite clearly that the opposite happens. Yes. Because if it's coming around in the chylomicrons, it doesn't need to go via the VLDL pathway, which it ends up with a lot of LDL. That's why when you do a low carbohydrate diet or a keto diet or whatever, eating a lot of fat, but not consuming a lot of cholesterol, your body will actually generate more triglycerides and VLDL and push it out as energy and circulate it around and add the extra cholesterol that's been endogenously produced in the liver. And then you end up with these numbers. But as long as the LDL is not oxidized, who cares? But if you get it in the diet and it's going through the chylomicrons, you'll get less export out of these other lipoproteins. It's like these trucks are going around giving the energy away and the cholesterol. If you're getting it from the diet and you're getting it why produce more and send it out? You're going to produce less. And that's why, and even Dave Feldman, now he's falling into the trap of this, the carb trap for whatever reason, again, reductionism, even though he understood that this movement of energy, because he's got an ApoE of 4,4, he rapidly takes in the chylomicron remnants and produces more LDL as a consequence. But that's because he's one of the hyper-responders, which is about 4.5% of the population. You can't extrapolate from that for everyone. And it's actually because it's actually the opposite. The whole reason is when people in the interglacial periods of 200,000 years ago and about 100,000 years ago, these genetic changes happened in those periods of ApoE 3.3 and 2.2, specifically because these people had more access to carbs for a number of thousands of years. And as a consequence, they had to make these adjustments because they had to stop the fat that was coming in from the food supply getting into the liver, because you didn't want too much fat at the same time as there's a lot of sugar in the liver from these other foods. And it was actually a protective mechanism. But that meant that, that those people tend to show much lower LDL-C. But these guys are hyper-responders who have the old ancient genes of ApoE 4.4. They suck it in because that's how they're designed, to suck it in immediately and re-export it, because their diet was primarily made of fat, not sugar. So they had to take it in. The liver, just that's why these people suffer fatty liver and all sorts of issues and engage the Randall cycle much easier. They have to do the exact opposite. It's, again, not understanding how the system's working. Where the people with an ApoE of 2.2 or 3.3 can tolerate slightly more carbs, where these guys can't tolerate any. They've got the back to front, the whole understanding. It's ridiculous. Again, due to reductionist thinking. It's, if it wasn't so serious, it'd be laughable. Harry, you should take, how should we take taurine? Sprinkle on meat or dissolve in water and consume in between meals? I usually do it in water. That's how I do it. My father does it in his yogurt in the evening, because he has a bit of yogurt every evening religiously. So, so he has his big steak in the middle of the day at lunchtime, and he has his eggs with some cheese and some ham in the morning, and then in the evening he has his yogurt, and that's where he puts his taurine in, his MSM, his leucine and all that. Yeah, he does that in the evening. So yeah, so it's a bit like that. I would basically, there's a benefit of actually putting it in the evening, having it in the evening as well. You will, as your melatonin increases, it will actually enhance melatonin production, one thing, and it will also enhance GABA production. That means it will make you calmer, sleepier and calmer. So you'll actually be able to get better sleep. So better to use it in the evening. Yes, they fight eggs all the time. And another thing, do not take vitamin D tablets in the evening. Somebody told me that Dr. Burgess actually was recommending vitamin D. It actually has a suppressive effect on melatonin. It's a bad thing. He doesn't know what he's saying. Yes, vitamin D should be taken within circadian hours. Your circadian rhythms, we signal with light to know exactly. And we make our vitamin D, we basically should be getting it between 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock. 11 o'clock is a sweet spot that I find because of the lower cortisol as well. That's when I want these things to come in. So yeah, if people have heard that bullshit, don't listen to it. It's nonsense. Yeah, I know. Yeah. You know the study, the 25 eggs. I've linked it on one of my videos. Give that to your doctor. Blast his mind, his ignorant mind. But then again, it may cause you problems, I know. They usually become very combative when you disagree with them. Like I had a major argument with my cardiologist 2 years ago. Well, not with my cardiologist, actually, with the little shit that, because my cardiologist was away sick, so I was given this little shit that had just come out of university, probably had been 2 years as a cardiologist, and thought he fucking knew everything. The little shit. I felt like he needed somebody to take him down with a baseball bat. Absolute arsehole, and how absolutely disrespectful towards me as his elder. So yes. Anyway, Harry, can you explain the cholesterol in food related to triglyceride production from the liver? Cholesterol is a waxy material, does not increase, has anything to do with triglycerides production. Absolutely nothing to do with triglyceride production. Cholesterol is a waxy material, a waxy fatty material. Absolutely nothing. The only thing that cholesterol does, it combines with fatty acids, combines to create an ester, what is called a cholesterol ester, but has absolutely nothing to do with triglycerides. Triglycerides come from fat. They're a source of energy. We don't oxidize cholesterol. Cholesterol is not used for fat. It's used as a structural material throughout the body and reparative material. So it has nothing to do with basically the production of energy. Production of energy is coming from triglycerides or contraindicated things like sugar that some people consume. That's where your energy primarily comes from. And when you're out of those two and you can't access any body fat, or you've got none, then you start going for the proteins in your body, on your body. So absolutely nothing to do with it in that regard. Anyway, guys, we're a bit over 3 hours. I'm going to pull the plug. So I had my morning walk with Hello Kitty. She's probably still out shopping. I know where she's gone. She's gone. She said, I'm going to go to the supermarket, but nah, she would have gone across the road. There's basically this around where Kmart is and stuff like that. So she would have gone through those shopping centres. She's probably still there shopping. I wouldn't, and I'm going to annoy some of the women on this, but you know what? Women love shopping far more than men. And that's the reality, so she'll be looking at different clothes and stuff like that. I've been shopping with her, so I know. And my partner's the same. Every woman, my mother was the same. My sisters were the same. I've got 2 sisters. I know what women are like. They can spend hours in shopping centres. Hours. Anyway, you're welcome. Now that I've upset half the human race, I'll end this whole thing. I'll be doing later today in about 4 hours and 10 minutes from now. There will be the Eurasian live. Yes, there will be. So for you, it's going to be later. Yep. So 4 from just a bit over 4 hours from now will be the next one. So look forward to seeing you. If you haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button. And if you're a Vagoon listening, please hit the dislike button. I'll take anything. And if you're a repeat thing, hit either anyone you like for whatever reason. I don't care. As long as you hit something. All that. Either one will do. The AI supposedly likes either one. It's weird, it's funny, it's strange, it's deranged. Like Google, they have a mental case. Yes. Basically, their friend Jabba the Hutt and themselves are, yes, in a deranged state of highly, they're looking for little kitties now. If you're a kitty, Jabba the Hutt's coming after you. Anyway, I'm out of here. See you guys.